6:30. I guess we should give it another minute. I think we have a quorum. Is that correct, Janine?
Yes, we have a quorum.
I didn't hear you, but I saw you nod. Somebody say some greeting to me so that I'm sure my sound is working.
Hey, Marty.
Hi, Marty.
Hi, Marty.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
I heard that last one. I heard it. Yep.
Okay.
That minute has passed. We have, as I see it, a number of people attending. There are 53 people on the Zoom at the moment. The panelists are 17. We are following the agreement that the board made that we're having this as a virtual meeting. It is a virtual meeting this month. It was going to be at Javits Center, and we were going to see a roof. Looking at how dark it is, I'm not sure how well we would see a roof at the time that we should have our meeting, especially in December when it's even darker, but that's when it's scheduled for. The roof is there. Maybe we'll have to think about having people come a little bit earlier so that we can see the roof, but that we'll talk about during the month and we'll keep you informed about it. And we're holding it as a virtual meeting because of the change in the open law rules that were enacted by the governor and now are applied by the mayor, and that the board has agreed to in a resolution that was passed last month. I more or less have that correct, I hope. We have, to my knowledge, 3 items on the agenda. A discussion on the dog run. I'll say more about that in a second. A presentation about the multifamily energy efficiency program for our information. And finally, a discussion from a presentation from New York Outrigger, one of the organizations that does really fine work on the river. Are we ready to start the discussion on the dog run? I will introduce it by saying that the purpose of this is for the committee to basically listen to what people in the public have to say about the dog run, and then we should have a discussion about what we have heard. The discussion is a little bit early from the point of view of the park itself, because the park, as you all know, is going to go under some. There's been a lot of money allocated for its renovation, and the planning for that renovation isn't really scheduled to start until sometime early next year. And as I quipped earlier today, if they say it's going to be early next year, it's probably going to be later next year. Excuse me if I have offended anybody by saying it that way. But there have been a number of comments made by people about the dog run. I plan to sort of right now state what my position is and then back away from it and listen and take notes to what people have to say. The dog run was instituted as a temporary facility. It was supposed to be closed when Chelsea Waterside Dog Run opened, and that's supposed to be a very lovely dog run, but it isn't open yet. At least as of today, I heard that it was not open. I did not walk down there to see it.
Marty, it's Lowell. If I could interrupt you for 1 second on that point. I have it on good information that the Chelsea Waterside Dog Run will be opened by Thanksgiving.
That's 2 weeks or so, not even. And that'll be lovely. Thank you for that, Lowell. My own position, and in the discussion that follows, you can bounce off me any way you want, is that there are some facilities in our neighborhood that cause neighbors a great deal of disturbances. And the one I'm thinking of is the fire department's facility on 23rd Street. It is an important facility. The community board has known that that facility has disturbed local people for quite some time, and it has done yo person's work in trying to find an alternative to that. This is not the time for the discussion of where that alternative is and all of that, but that's moving along, if even very slowly. The dog run doesn't raise to the same level. If there are complaints about noise, and there always are complaints about noise by people who are affected by dog run, then that dog run is affecting their own quality of life. The number of complaints that I am aware of include about 9 letters that were written to the board and about 15 complaints to the 311 about noise coming from the dog run. And I believe that's a serious affront to people who live near the dog run. I will argue as we move along for the park's design for something other than a dog run in that space, though that space does need to be made safe. That's my position. I won't say it again tonight. I'll open the floor. I think, Janine, I don't know if we can do this, but if there are people, I think this is a moment for us to reverse our normal operation. Committee members, please object for me if I'm saying something that I shouldn't be, but I'm speaking on your behalf. I think we should let the public speak. That's the purpose of this meeting, of the dog run at this meeting. We should hear what they have to say. We should take notes about their positions. We should ask each person who speaks to tell us what their position is and what their address is. I will make as many notes as I can. And when everybody from the public who has finished speaking, we'll give you one turn, we'll give you 2 minutes each, has finished speaking about the dog run, then I think the committee should start to talk a little bit about what it heard, and what the next steps are. I really haven't passed what I just said by anybody. I didn't say that I would do this to Jesse Bodine, who I spoke with earlier today. I didn't say it to Leslie, who, did I say in the beginning that she's not here because she has another obligation for her daughter and her daughter's school? Good reason not to be here. She's not here tonight. She'll be here next month. I've given you a time to think about what I said about the order of events. Are there any objections to what I said? Does it make sense? No objections. Yes, it makes sense. Thank you, David.
I have no objections, Marty, but I think you said 2 minutes per person, and I would just really advocate that we try to keep to that, especially since this is going to be a yes or no position really from members of the public. So I would just hope somebody's, I'm happy to do it if we have someone really timing to do this.
Since I'm going to be directing traffic, it'd be great, Lowell, if you could do the timing. I'd appreciate that. Somebody else had a comment.
A quick note, as long as this doesn't conflict with any bylaws, I'm fine with the suggestion.
As far as I know, it doesn't. It's been our habit to have the committee speak first about any issue and then have the public speak after that. But the situation about this discussion is really reversed because the committee can't speak unless it has a sense of what the public wants to say. So let's hear what they have to say.
That's good, Marty. Just a comment, concern. Otherwise, I'm happy to go with the suggestion.
So as of,
Okay, so I'll bring over I'll bring over the attendees as I see them. So Shelley, Daryl, and Deborah are coming over.
and we'll start with
Shelley is over. Shelley and Daryl are over.
Lowell should be listed as a panelist, not as I see Lowell at the
I'm
top.
on the phone for about another 5 minutes, Marty, and then I'll switch over.
All right. I heard Shelley.
Hi, my name's Shelley Rosen. I'm a Penn South resident and a member of the Penn South Park Dog Run leadership team. We have a very strong community organization to support this run. We've already fundraised thousands of dollars to buy barriers, storage benches, and other equipment. We've organized a team of volunteers to make sure there's water in the run and enforce the limited hours. We have a dedicated Facebook group with almost 200 members. Hundreds of people individually have emailed district, I believe over 350. I'm not sure how many, but a lot to support the run. This run is essential for our community members at Penn South. Yes, there will be other dog runs opening, but as a NORC, a naturally occurring retirement community, we have many elderly residents who cannot walk over a mile round trip to the two other runs. We also have members with disabilities for whom the other runs are also completely inaccessible and a great hardship for others. We fully endorse the limited hours from 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And if approved, our organization will fundraise and install a timed lock that would make violating the hours impossible. And we can also improve on just our temporary status now by installing an electronic lock that will prevent anybody who does not follow the dog run rules, which is by not addressing their dog's excessive barking, they will be prevented from entering. So we can do a lot more to it, as hard as we've worked to be considerate and responsible neighbors. We can do a lot better if we're approved, and we can even do more fundraising, and we can prevent anybody from entering the dog run who does not belong there and who will not be a responsible neighbor. So it is a very important and essential run. I live near the buildings. I have heard some dogs barking in nearby building, and it's really I think there's a lot of hyperbole about how loud it is. I know some people have complained, but we've had a much greater number of people who support it at Penn South and near Penn South. And it's within the hundreds. And it is important for dogs to have the ability to.
Thank you, Shelley.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Thank you, Shelley. Who's the next speaker?
I think I am. I'm Daryl. Can you hear me?
Daryl Neg. Yeah.
Great.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
so I'm not going to go over what Shelley said, but I do want to let you guys know of some very great community activities that we have done to promote the dog run, things that you guys don't know about. So, for example, we know that we must all live among each other and be considerate of our neighbors. We have implemented a campaign to stop and lower the dog barking. I mean, we've really done something I think is a national good standard. We got volunteers, we got dog trainers, and we got dog owners. We all come to the dog park, and whenever we see a dog barking, we go up to the owner and we politely tell them not to lower the dog barking. We put up signs to let them know that to lower the dog barking. We've modeled for them so that they see when our dog barks that we discipline them and train them, or we take them out, and then if that doesn't work, we actually, what I find most effective is that you actually just go up to the barking dog and you play with it and you get it to stop barking on a lower turn. I think we've had a fantastic success in turning that around, and that originally dogs bark at dog parks. They're used to that, but we know the special conditions of this dog park. So we have focused in on that, and we have tackled that as a community. And we are, we've now we changed the community standard culture of that dog park so that there's peer pressure, so that when another owner has a barking dog, they stop. So I think we have tremendous progress on that, and I think we can still improve on that. but I just want to let you know that that is a very active campaign that we're doing. In addition to that, that park has the best cleanup that we have, even though it's all volunteer. For example, this week we had 3 volunteers sweep up all the leaves, and it's autumn, and we completely cleaned up that dog park. And it's all volunteer park bought. I mean, everything from the broom to the sweeper, that's all been voluntarily organized. And we're going to go back there this week because, again, it's the fall leaves are falling, and we're going to sweep it again. So I want to say that we have done a tremendous amount of volunteer work from the community to take care of the park. I do also want to note that we have like a special intervention. If you go there, we have set up doggy poop container bags every 10 feet so that everyone knows in the dog park to pick up their dog poop. And it is the cleanest park that you can see in the cities, simply because every 10 feet, there's a reminder of a doggy poop bag hanging out there and for them to take free. And we've arranged it for this whole year. It's been volunteered and donated and paid for by volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Daryl. Who's the next person, Janine?
Deborah?
Hi, Deborah, you're muted. We cannot hear you.
Hi, sorry. Eric Botcher describes the effects of noise best. In addition to being obnoxious, excessive noise is harmful to people's health. According to the US EPA, problems related to noise include stress-related illnesses, high blood pressure, speech interference, hearing loss, sleep disruption, and lost productivity. Excessive barking, which we experience every day, is noise. I and my Penn South neighbors are being directly and adversely affected many times a day by the frequent, uncontrolled, and piercing barking that occurs from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. By going door to door, I collected signatures from and spoke with over 100 residents of Penn South Co-op that are directly affected by the dog park and all the nuns who live in St. Columba's Convent. These petitioners request that the Penn South Playground Dog Park be closed once Chelsea Waterside Dog Park reopens. The Pro Dog Park group also has a petition and letters to Councilman Botcher, but the majority of their signatures are not from residents who live in Penn South, so they're not affected by the intrusive barking. Elderly residents have complained to me that they're afraid to go to the Penn South Dog Park as it is too chaotic with the big dogs running around, and both they and their dogs are frightened of being knocked over and attacked. Many of us are trying to work from home, but it's difficult to concentrate with the intrusive barking. The location of this dog park is inappropriate. It's in the middle of a residential neighborhood. The space is narrow and is abutted by 2 low-rise buildings, which amplifies and magnifies the sound of the barking like a megaphone to the residents and buildings surrounding it. There's no need for a dog park in Penn South Playground. There are 2 new beautiful renovated dog parks within 3 blocks of Penn South Park. There's Madison Square Park to the east and Chelsea Waterside to the west. Each is only a 12-minute walk from the present location, according to Google Maps. There's nowhere in New York City that has a dog park every 3 blocks. Penn South Dog Park deprives the residents of Penn South Co-op our common law right as shareholders and human beings to enjoy the peaceful possession of our apartments. Dogs and dog owners do not have the right to take this from us. The barking is very bothersome to us. It's not under control. The dogs bark a lot. Please close it.
2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Next, Janine.
Jake?
Hi, I'm Jake. I live on 9th Avenue and loved the old dog park. Can't wait for it to open. I would love if it's open by Thanksgiving. I can't imagine that it will be from all the things that we've possibly heard. I was really one of the big proponents of opening this dog park temporarily. My dog Val here loves it so much. She's a husky. We do not have the time to walk all the way to Madison Square Park and back, especially when it is snowing outside. Especially when I have a husky that needs a lot of exercise. I can't give more than an hour a day just to go to a dog park. So this dog park is incredible. I forget who it was who was speaking earlier, but when he spoke to the community of the aspect of the dog park, and we really do feel that. We are all so grateful to have it. I'm probably speaking out of turn here because I'm not involved on the committee that Shelley spoke of, which, by the way, would love to connect with you somehow afterwards and get the information of that, because I'd love to be on the committee. But I think that like somebody else said, those people maybe, Deborah was saying they don't live in the Penn South building. Sure, but we live in the community and we need a place for our dogs. So my suggestion would be, if there's a world where this is going to be completely shut down over, no, like that cannot happen. Also, she was saying about the small dogs are scared to go to the big dogs. If we have this new funding and we get the approval, we could potentially separate it into a big and small dog park, possibly. There are ideas here if we get the approval to move forward. But what I was going to say is there really can't be a world where this park completely closes. How about we minimize the hours? Maybe it's not 8 to 8. It could be shorter than that. But there cannot be a world where this completely goes away. Full stop. So that is my opinion, and thanks for listening.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it. The next person is
Rita?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jake, for those words. When I first heard about this area being considered as a temporary location for a dog run, I was in full support of this as a temporary solution. I believe I read about it on the Penn South Facebook page briefly as a temporary place for dogs to go until the renovation was complete. It was noisy, but I knew it was short-lived until the other dog park on the west side was renovated. Presently, the park is situated in a very small, narrow area between two buildings where the noise, in particular barking, has nowhere to go but upward. I love dogs. I grew up owning dogs. I believe they deserve a place to run, to play, and to bark. They need space in a more expansive, larger area. The excessive barking continues from early morning until the park closes at 8 p.m. I realize that this is a city park, but it's situated in the middle of a residential area. We have elderly people, kids doing homework, and with hybrid working from home, it's a constant disruption throughout the day to work or to do Zoom meetings. This was supposed to be a temporary solution, but we are a permanent residents and deserve peace in our own homes and our quality of life respected. If I can just add one more thing, there is a convent next door with 8 nuns currently living beside the park. They're elderly women. They have served the children of our community for over 50 years. Their bell was never rung. They were never asked about the possible inconvenience this park may cause them. There's a stained glass window, very visible, which is their chapel and their house of worship, where they go every day to pray. I cannot help but wonder, would every other house of worship in New York City be treated in this same way? I'm one voice representing many people who wake up and go to bed with constant barking.
Thank you. 2 minutes.
To accommodate this temporary solution, but it was never meant to be permanent. And we ask that you please now accommodate us and move to your rightful location. Thank you again, everybody, for listening.
Thank you, Rita. You live in what building?
I live in building 4.
Thank you very much. Who's the next person, please?
Stephanie?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to share our thoughts on the dog run. I do live in Penn South. I'm a resident of Building 5 on 9th and 25th. My feeling is that the dog run has been an amazing addition to our community. Not only is it wonderful for the dogs, but the community building that has happened there, you can see it every time you're there, every time you pass by. Neighbors sharing their time together, getting to know one another, helping each other. There are even people that come that live in Penn South who are dog lovers, older people who aren't able to have a dog of their own, but they joyfully come in, sit on the benches, share their time talking to people, and they get to enjoy the company of other people's pets when they can't have their own. And it is just wonderful to see and experience. I do recognize that I think early on, there are always some growing pains with a new, whenever anything new happens. And there's a learning curve for people that come. But, as they said early on, there has been an improvement in the barking, and that in my experience is rare, not as often as people say it's happening, but it can be further improved. Given the time, I really do feel like we can get it down to the 1, 2, 3 barks, and they're they learn not to bark. Given the time, I do think that it is not, a lot of the other parks that they mentioned aren't that close. They're not like, it's not Central Park, but they're not super close. And having it nearby in the community so that your dogs can get a run before you have to leave for the office is really meaningful. I hope that they maintain it and keep it open. And as a community, we'll do what we can to support our neighbors. We don't want to be a burden or have the dog run be something that is detrimental to people's everyday lives. We will continue to do what we can to make it so that everybody can enjoy it, whether they go there or not. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I see Mary Jones is next.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Can you see me?
loud and clear. Can't see you, can hear you.
Thank you for having this meeting. I am strongly in support of the dog park becoming permanent. I live in Penn South, across from the dog park. I am not bothered by the dogs. Having the dog park nearby is wonderful. I am also physically unable to walk to either Madison Park or Chelsea Dog Park. People like me who are unable to walk a mile round trip will have no access to a dog park. Please make this park permanent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate your comments.
Charles?
Charles, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Okay. Am I visible? Can you see me?
No, no, I can't see you. I can hear you. Now I can see you.
Hi, thanks for having me. I want to express my position on the dog park. I also live in Building 4, 315 8th Avenue. I've lived here for 18 years, and I'm a native New Yorker. I'm no stranger to the everyday noise that we encounter as native New Yorkers, as New Yorkers. However, I have to say that the barking emanating from the dog park is an exception. It's very disturbing. It pierces into my apartment, even with the windows closed. And I have videos of this, which I don't know if I can share it on this platform, but I did send it to Eric Botcher's office and to Jordan Feiner, and he agreed that it was really loud and disruptive. It's an everyday occurrence. It's first sound I usually hear when I wake up. It disturbs me from my work. I work from home. I'm an ESL teacher. I teach English pronunciation to immigrants. And as you can imagine, correcting somebody's pronunciation requires intense listening, and it requires a quiet environment free of distractions. Unfortunately, I do not have the budget to rent office space in Manhattan. That's cost prohibitive. It would involve raising my rates for my students who are immigrants, and I wouldn't want to do that to them. So I do teach from this environment, and it's been going well. But I have to say that the barking is loud, even with the windows closed. It's disruptive, and I just think there's got to be a solution where all parties can be happy. And I live here permanently. It's not something, I don't go to the dog run for 1 hour. People are basing their judgments about the noise based on the little time that they're there. However, keep in mind that many of us are here.
Thank you.
A lot. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments.
Marina?
Hi. I'd like to address 3 points in support of the Chelsea Dog Run: sound, proximity for children and the elderly, and community. I live directly across the street at 311 West 24th Street, Penn South Building 3B, and I'm on the 6th floor. My windows face Pinwheel Park and the dog park. I work from home 4 days a week, sometimes 5. I almost never hear dog barking. If I do notice barking, it's quickly subsided. The barking is no more jarring than the joyful screams of children at Pinwheel Park. It is 1.2 miles round trip from the apartment building to Chelsea Waterside Park Dog Run. And it's even further from the apartment to Madison Park Dog Run. It's 0.7 miles each way, a total of 1.4. My youngest child is 13 years old, and I don't feel comfortable allowing her to take our pups that far from the apartment. She has to pass halfway houses, and it's not awesome. Having the dog run in Chelsea allows her to socialize the dogs beyond taking them on regular walks. She's also made friends at the dog park. My dad, who lives nearby and is a very fit 82 years old, also helps us with the dog walking throughout the week. Having the park nearby gives him a place that is close by without needing to walk to the further dog parks. My last point touches on community. A community that was pulled together haphazardly but emphatically when a call for volunteers was made back in May of this year. We started off having very little idea of what we were supposed to be doing, but as each need arose, we immediately addressed it. A group of complete strangers working together towards a common goal. When money needed to be raised for supplies, we did it. When signage to minimize barking needed to be made, we made it happen. When new people entered the dog park and weren't aware that they should mind their pups and control the barking, we made sure to gently educate them. This is a community that did not exist before the dog run came into fruition. But this is a community and a dog run that we would love to retain.
Thank you very much, Marina. Take it,
Karen?
Karen Basket.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Can't see
Okay,
you.
great. Yeah, I don't know if my video is on because I don't have those controls. I live in building 7A, and I've heard a few misstatements. It is not 2 miles. It is 2 avenue blocks and 2 city blocks, which is 0.7 of a mile to get there. Now, when people get dogs, they know where the dog parks are. I mean, I wouldn't buy a dog or adopt a dog and expect somebody to let me just plop a dog run in their backyard. I work from home. It's very disruptive. It doesn't start at 8 o'clock. It starts at 7 o'clock when dog owners bring their dogs into the children's basketball courts and start running them there, because that's a nice big space, kind of like the dog parks that our tax dollars just paid for. I was fine with it being temporary. People have to have a place to take their dogs. But honestly, the idea that these dogs are not barking or they're not barking from long is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I hear them from 7 to 7:30. I hear them from 8. I hear them from 10 a.m. I hear them from noon. And there was just a dog barking for a half an hour around 5:30. So I don't know what these people are talking about. Maybe they're listening to their own dogs, but the amount of poop that's in the neighborhood has gone way up because people come there, and dogs have to go. I don't even understand the discussion. We have 4 large residential buildings. How many human beings have to be upset and disturbed before, it's considered? I voted to renovate the dog parks. I voted to renovate the children's park. I didn't vote to renovate the children. Oh, is it?
Yes, Karen. Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Caroline?
Told you. Do you want to speak, William?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Can hear and see. Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
Caroline.
I'm just going to speak super briefly in support of the dog park. I'm a very recent dog adopter, only as of April. So by the time my dog came into the neighborhood, there both of the other dog parks were closed for renovation, or so we were told. So the 25th Street Dog Park was a godsend, and we understood a temporary one. And I would just like to say that I absolutely sympathize with the noise complaints. I'm really sensitive to noise myself. I'm a writer. Both my partner and I work from home and write all day. I hate the helicopters. And just as soon as the West Side Dog Park opens, I intend to take my very active dog there instead of to the 25th Street one, just for that reason. I think I just want to say, as far as I know, because I go to the 25th Street Dog Park twice a day, and absolutely, my dog, as soon as he starts barking, he's out of there. The majority of people, I think, completely understand this complaint and try their best to quiet the dogs. And a lot of us intend, as soon as the one near the West Side Highway is open, to move over there. I just want to say also quickly that as soon as we all move west, as soon as that one's open, I would hope that the people in the more immediate community of Penn South, who have quieter dogs, smaller dogs, and who are for whom it's a challenge physically to get further away to the dog parks, I hope that they can continue to use that spot, because it's become a really special part of the community. Thanks.
Where do you live, Caroline?
I live on 22nd between 7th and 8th.
Thank you.
Done? Sorry if I mispronounced it.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Hi. Very many people have already said what I had wanted to say, so I won't reiterate too much, except for the fact that I worked for the city for 39 years for city government, and I walked to and from Lower Manhattan and Brooklyn to Chelsea. I live in Penn South. I'm in Building 1, and I have a small dog. I'm now 65. For me to walk to Chelsea Piers or Madison Square Park at this point is virtually impossible. It's strenuous and painful. I want to address the noise of the dogs barking too. I go to the park twice a day, early morning. The gate is not open at 7 a.m. It's unlocked at 8 a.m. The park the last woman was complaining about the dogs on 26th Street. The dogs have been there for over 15 years, and that's because the Parks Department does not keep that gate locked, and they're not supposed to be there. The dog park has been extremely beneficial for people who are elderly and for people who are physically challenged walking. It also provides a time for people of elderly people to meet with other people and have their pets have a time where they can discuss and they feel like there's a camaraderie there that didn't exist before. So I fully support the dog run. I think the noise that people are complaining about is exaggerated. Having been a New Yorker for my entire life also, I know what noise is like. Living across the street from Whole Foods previously and listening to freezer trucks at 3 o'clock in the morning. The noise of the dogs is not consistent. It happens every once in a while. And often there is no noise at all. And the park is definitely closed by 8 p.m. And I think that Shelley and I think it was Jake have wonderful suggestions that could benefit everybody that lives in Pet South.
Thank you.
To address the issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Stephen. We can't
Okay.
see you, but we can hear you.
Okay. My name is Stephen Baum. I live in Building 4. I'm double whammy here. I'm certainly not in favor of this park. I work for the Parks Department. My unit inspects parks. I've been doing this since 2008. We do 6,000 parks a year. That but plus if you look at pickups, I've done 100,000 of these inspections. There's no dog run in the city at all like this, shaped like this. It's shaped like a maze. It's this wide. It's the smallest dog run. I'm actually a dog lover. And if you said to me, we're going to put this dog, and the majority of the people on this call are Penn South residents. I know some of them. I've seen them. They know me. But my bedroom window is right above this, and I grew up under a subway. I did, I've done some, time in some pretty strange situations in my life. I can deal with noise. The barking is. Most days, yes, it is 8 to 8. There have been times where I can tell you it's not been 8 to 8. It's been 3 a.m. There's an outside wrought iron gate that leads to a dog run, which has a key, a public key. Now, Shelley could say we can improve on this. Maybe you can, but so far this has not been improved. And like I said, this has not been a constant, but there have been many nights where there has been 2, 3 a.m. Dogs barking. Someone can come along, clip. I can tell you right now, I understand this because Therese understands that, working for parks, I understand not everyone could be at everyone for lockups at every point at every time. Some days someone might be there at 8, some days someone might be there at 8:30, some days someone might be there at 6:30 in the morning to open the park. I am short-staffed. I brought this up for a meeting. A similar situation happened in Queens. For the next year, Shakar Krishnan and Jackie Langsam has
Thank you,
made
Stephen. 2 minutes.
speak about this. Okay, well,
Stephen, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Now, next is Evelyn.
Yep.
Evelyn Santiago. Can you hear us? Evelyn Santiago. You've been brought over and we're not hearing you. We'll put you aside and go to the next person, please. Oh,
Arnold?
she's connecting to audio. Evelyn, unmute yourself. Evelyn going once. Evelyn Santiago, this is your last chance. Hello. We're not hearing you clearly, Evelyn. Let's go to the next person, please.
Arnold is next.
We need to go to the next person. This is going to be too long a meeting.
Next is, sorry, Mila.
Marty, while we're sorting this out, can I make a suggestion?
May.
I see there are another 11 people with their hands up now. And people, I'll be honest, from where I'm sitting, it's starting to sound a little redundant. So if what we do at full board is, what we typically say is, if you're going to just echo what somebody before you said, get up, say, I agree with this person, and keep it shorter than the 2 minutes, because we've got 2 other items on the agenda tonight. We've already been at this for 45 minutes, and we're going to be at it for another hour easily with the number of hands up.
And we're not going to take any more hands at this point. Jean, would you mute Evelyn, please?
Yeah.
And would you call on whoever the next person is? And I won't repeat what Lowell said, but he's right.
Okay, Arnold is next.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I have a win-win for people over here. A few blocks away from Penn South Playground is Chelsea Park. And there's a handball court in Chelsea Park that's barely used. And there's no housing around it. There are 2 handball courts. If one of them was changed into a dog run, then we'd have both a handball court and a dog run. Okay. Secondly,
Sorry, I'm sorry, Arnold, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Janine, is it possible to mute the Evelyn?
Yeah, I muted her. I'm
There.
removing her as
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, to continue, also in Chelsea Park, there's the Chelsea Health Center, which has nothing to do with parks. And we're not going to get rid of Chelsea Health Center, but turns out there are all these wonderful grassy areas in the Chelsea Health Center part of the park. And those can be turned into multiple dog runs with real grass for the dogs. Now, I think the handball court would be a less problematic place there because it's more away from people. The grassy areas do tend to be Penn South across the street, but that handball court, I think, is a place nearby that can be used and moved out of the Penn South playground. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnold. I'm going to encourage you to bring that up when there's a discussion about the design of the Penn South playground.
Rosalie?
Yes, Rosalie Regal. I live in building 4. I overlooked this most horrendous idea, so horrendous that Eric Butcher lied to me about his lack of responsibility for this dog park. Whoever lives in Penn South and overlooks this dog park and says the noise is, I am old and I am telling you the noise is horrendous. It is so bad. It is never ending. The windows are closed. I cannot think. I cannot write. I cannot do what I want to do because the noise is so dreadful. It even frightens my cat. This is the worst idea ever. And I cannot believe that the board, you're supposed to represent people who live here. I've lived in Penn South for 30 years, and this is not acceptable. Do you hear me? Not acceptable for you all to okay this. So bad an idea that Butcher had to lie to me about his responsibility. And then, of course, he admitted that it was, in fact, his idea. It is a dreadful idea, and you cannot okay it. I love the people who support it say, well, it's good for the old and good for, well, it's not good for the old and it's not good for the infirm when they hear this noise all day and night long. Just terrible, a terrible idea. And don't you dare to okay this idea that people who are living in such distress, unable to live their lives normally because you all okay a dog park. If they can't walk to a dog run, and there are 2, they're quite right, then walk around the block. But don't be disturbing your neighbors so badly that we cannot live. This has been a horrible, horrible experience. Even my cat runs away from it.
Thank you so much, Rosalie.
Zach is next.
Who's next?
Zach?
Zach.
Yes, hi. I'll keep it short because it's, I think a lot of this has been covered. Zach, I live on 25th between 7th and 8th. I've been a member of the community for about 6 years now. I would just say the dog park is in my opinion, such an addition to the community. It's the first time in my experience that there's been a sense of community here. And I think it's a bright spot in the context of a lot of the other things that have come post-COVID or during COVID that actually serve to better this community. So just a big proponent of it, and appreciate everybody that's made the efforts to have it here. And I hope that it stays here in the future. Thank you.
I have a double thank you for you. Thank you for your comments and thank you for keeping them short.
Jane is next.
Hi, my name is Jane Darcy. I live across the street from the dog park and I'm directly affected by the barking from the park. The barking does continue throughout the day, and I would say that the barking falls into 3 categories. There's constant barking that continues for extended periods of time. There's barking that sets off barking from other dogs so that it creates a kind of a pack of barking dogs. And then there's barking that is cumulative over the course of the day. And all of these types of barking cause severe stress. I think it's also important to understand that the quality of the barking is important to think about. it bounces off of the buildings and it causes an overlap of noise that results in even more noise. And I'd like you to think about the city environmental quality review manual says noise levels that are not considered hazardous should not be overlooked, since they can cause stress-related illnesses, disrupt sleep, and interrupt activities requiring concentration. And that's from the city environmental review manual. My hope and sanity rest on your careful review of the placement of the dog park in a residential area. And I'm hoping when the dog parks open in Chelsea Water Park and Madison Square Park, that you will be able to move the temporary dog park back to its appropriate locations. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Jane. Where do you live?
I live in 3B.
Thank you. Next person.
Ludmila?
Yes. Hi. I live in apartment on the 10th floor in building 3B, which is facing the dog park. I love dogs and I understand people want to have a space to enjoy the outdoor with their dogs. But the location of this dog park in such residential area is not appropriate. My life, as well as the life of my family and neighbors, have become a nightmare since this park was created. 12 hours a day, or sometimes even more, we have to listen to the barking of the dogs. This park is located in the alley between two buildings. That's why the barking sounds very loud, because it's echoes, and sound become much louder. Also, it is a fact that owner do not control the barking of the dogs, and I can prove it. It is not non-stop. All of this affecting our life. It's hard to work, to study, to read. It's hard to enjoy to be home in own apartment. We cannot relax, we cannot concentrate, and it's almost feel like it gets worse every day. Barking is the first sound that I hear every morning. We have been living in hell. Quality of our life become worse because the barking never ends. Please relocate this park from our residential neighborhood. To solve the situation, you can relocate this park, but we cannot relocate our apartments. We have to live with this terrible noise. And to prove my words, I want you all to listen very small clip that I recorded today, so you can understand better what we hear every day.
That's not going to be possible.
Yeah, we're at our 2 minutes.
Would you tell us what building you live in? Where do you live?
Yes, it's
No, don't play it. Tell me what building you live in, please.
3B.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
It should be resolved. It cannot be like this. It's really already like overlapped.
Okay, next up is Marilyn.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can.
Okay, my name is Marilyn Rivera. I am a first responder. I live in 3B on the 20th floor. I've been living in Penn South for over 20 years. I lived in an apartment in building 1, apartment 1J, literally the corner of 23rd and 9th Avenue on the first floor. I'm very accustomed to noise. I'm a city person. I was born and raised on the Lower East Side of Manhattan near the East River, where there's constant noise. This dog park, I'm not a fan of it. I love dogs. I think they're great. The barking is making me insane. And I've lived in the city my whole life. I'm a 58-year-old woman. I have a 14-year-old daughter who goes to Fashion High School. Our lives are being affected negatively by this park. I wake up in the middle of the night hearing dogs when there aren't even dogs there, but it's because of the constant. Sometimes it's constant and sometimes it's intermittent, but most times it's so high pitched. And of course the echoing, I'm going to echo what other people have said. The echoing of the park, the positioning of the park it's not feasible for us, the community, to be listening to these dogs barking all day constantly. Thank you for listening to me. I hope that the park is not becomes a part of the community. I love the community. Like I said, I've been there for over 20 years. I want to be friendly. I want to be friendly with everybody. But the dogs are making me insane. I'm sorry to say.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Priscilla?
You heard us, Priscilla. Would you unmute and start your conversation with us, please?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, my name is Priscilla Esposito. I live in Building 2, which is the building facing the dog park and also the Pinwheel Park. I've been in the development since it has been built. I have had my own dogs before. I love animals. But since this dog park opened, the barking, and I'll keep it brief because I think people have expressed it. The barking is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And as another person had said, it's all hours of the night. And I have a double problem because my apartment faces the Pinwheel Park, and that pathway from 24th Street to 25th Street has been a thoroughfare to the park. So the Pinwheel Park area has become also an extension of the dog park. So when the dog park is not open, the dogs are downstairs, and it's true. And these are honest complaints. The dogs are barking 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes it doesn't matter if it's open from 8 to 8. If you have 3 hours during the day of continual barking, it's enough to drive crazy. I just think it was a ill-conceived plan. It's not a great place for a dog park, and I think it should be moved. Many people have dogs. I had dogs. I didn't have a dog park, but I lived, you know. I don't think that this should become like a community thing where people just, hang out with their dogs. I went down Friday morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, because I walked through that area. I stood by the fence and I counted 13 dogs at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
And, I'm just.
Priscilla, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for listening. And Jordan, thank you for listening too, because I've had conversations with Jordan and he's been very, very helpful and very kind.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Simone.
Simone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having this talk. I'll try and be as brief as possible as well. I live on 25th and 9th. I've been here for 37 years. Huge fan of Chelsea. I am also a veterinarian, so I've had lots of dogs in my life up and down. And I think this dog park is one of the greatest things that's happened to our community. As a mom of 2 as well, we used to dread walking past that area because it was full of junkies. We called it the junkie park, and people will do things in that alleyway that were always made us feel really unsafe whenever we would leave the Pinwheel Park late at night. So I think not only has this dog park been a huge show of community, I've met people in this neighborhood that have also lived here for years and have never felt so welcome and warm. And my kids are in love with the park. I know we've said this a million times, but I just like to reiterate the sense of community it feels. I did have a quick suggestion. If people are not adhering to the rules and they're not stopping their dogs from barking or leaving, there are dog parks in other areas that do a membership-based thing. So you have to apply to be a member of or bring your dog to the dog park, and you have to sign that you understand the rules and it's regulated a bit better. I don't know if that's an option who would be part of that, but that might be one way to create more rules that could be adhered to at the park. And then the last thing I'd like to say, I know there's been a couple comments on if you're a dog owner, you should be aware of all the responsibilities and stuff. And yes, that is 100% true, but a lot of these dogs are also COVID dogs. My dog was adopted during the pandemic, and he has a lot of needs, and otherwise he would not have a good home. So we took him in on that, and he does need a lot of exercise and runs. And this dog park is a block away and has made my life and my kids' life much happier. And again, meeting the people in the community of this dog park has just been fantastic. The last thing I'll say, and thank you again so much for listening, is I hate to hear how much. Okay, thank you.
You don't live in Penn South, right? You live in.
Right, I don't live in Penn South.
You live between 9th and 10th Avenue.
Yes, both of my families live in Penn South, but I do not live in Penn South, unfortunately.
Okay. Who's the next person? Thank you very much, Simone.
Thank you.
Clark is next.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me? Sorry. Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Clark. I live on 25th between 7th and 8th with my partner and my dog. Definitely want to speak in favor of this park. I think I honestly, I'm kind of disheartened by, you know, what honestly feels like a lot of like a flavor of NIMBYism. You know, I feel like we should be, I hope we could be open to, you know, letting us have like a, you know, like other people said, this has been really great for the community, and I'm sympathetic to the noise complaints, and that that can definitely improve. But, you know, Penn South is an amazing community with so many wonderful people. But, you know, well, as an example, there's like a huge amount of grass that nobody else can use in Penn South, and, you know, I think it shouldn't be too much to ask for this little patch of concrete, which otherwise was a hangout for drug users and was you know, just otherwise not being used productively. So yeah, just that's all. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Clark. The redesign of the park is going to work very well about the drug use issue. Several people have mentioned it, and that all remains to be seen. Who's the next speaker?
Susan?
Hi.
Go ahead.
My name is Susan Wallet. I live in Penn South with my windows facing West 25th Street. Sorry for reading my statement, but I am not a very good public speaker. I have spoken here before and recently have written letters to this committee, the Parks Department, and Councilman Botcher, so you are all aware of how the dog park has negatively affected the quality of my life, as well as my request that it be closed when the Chelsea Waterside Dog Run reopens. Tonight, I would like to start by sharing the meaning of an unreasonable animal noise standard as defined in the New York City Noise Code, section 24-235. An unreasonable animal noise standard is defined as barking unprovoked for more than 10 minutes between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. This standard is met and exceeded at the dog park on a regular basis and is one reason why this location is inappropriate for a dog park. In recent weeks, the barking has gotten worse. Many of the more affluent Chelsea residents are away in the summer, and now that they are home, the barking has increased. As disruptive as it has been during the trial, I am sure that the efforts to quiet the dogs will decrease if the dog park is made permanent. Even a young woman named Audrey, who is on the volunteer committee, mentioned at the April meeting of this committee how she asked the dog owner to quiet their dog by saying, quote, "This is a trial, so we're really going to be very conscious of our neighbors," end quote. In other words, once the trial is over, the dogs can bark as much as they want. Up until now, allowing your dog to bark has the potential consequences of losing the dog park. If made permanent, there will be no consequences. There is no enforcement. I would also like to suggest a more appropriate use for the part of Penn South Playground that is currently being used as a dog park. It can be a space for younger children with disabilities to safely play away from the older and bigger children. There is no park that I am aware of that caters to the needs of disabled children, and this one should be as much of a five-star experience as Chelsea Waterside will be for dogs. Finally, I would like to ask again.
Thank you. 2
for
minutes.
later. I was just going to ask for a later opening time while we wait, but thank you for allowing me to speak.
You didn't tell me where you live, Susan.
I live in 2B.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker.
Rachel?
Hi
We have
there.
2 speakers after this, the way I'm seeing it.
Okay, I'll keep this short. My name is Rachel. I'm a resident of the neighborhood on 24th and 9th. I support the park. It's brought community together, dogs and people together. It's amazing to see the volunteers keeping it safe, clean, and respectful. It's been great to be part of this discussion today. I sympathize with those affected by the noise. However, I do echo earlier statements about how when the Waterside Park opens, there will be significantly less dogs visiting Penn South. And it would be devastating to those in this community that cannot walk to Waterside or Madison if it were to be closed. So thank you for listening, and thanks to both sides voicing their opinions.
Thank you, Rachel. I presume
Amanda?
Amanda? Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm a Penn South resident. I live in building 2B. The dog park has been really an invaluable asset to the community. I take issue with I find it a little strange that the dog park seems to be so much more irritating in terms of the noise that already happens in New York City. I don't personally have issues with it, and I personally don't hear much, but even if I do, it stops. But really, more importantly, the dog park has allowed has been a really great amenity, but also it's allowed people in Penn South to actually meet each other for the first time and actually created community. I lived here for 10 years. I didn't know anyone, and I've made friends through the dog park. And I really didn't know anyone. And I do credit the dog park with that, in addition to providing a really, albeit smelly currently, but wonderful place to bring your dog. And I think there will be less dogs when the Waterside Park opens up, and I just think it's a real asset to the area, and I hope that we can keep things in perspective for especially versus non-dog owners and dog owners, and what the relative noise is like in this area. So thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, very much. Appreciate it. The next person is
Margaret
Kelly. Lowell, do you have something you want to say?
Yes.
No, Marty, I was just waiting for when, I think Margaret's our last speaker, so I just wanted to
Okay.
get in when we're ready to go to committee.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. I live in building 4. I'm a Penn South resident for 24 years. I am absolutely a dog lover. I think there is a reason that dog parks are structured and situated in places where they're not in the middle of a corridor where people live and people can hear the dogs. I agree with everyone who has said the barking goes on almost continuously all day long. There are periods where it's worse than others. I totally love the idea that people want this to be a community situation, but we have community centers for that. We don't have to have it so that a few people who have a dog need to have that in our neighborhood, where it is unbelievable. Our lives are affected by this tremendously. The dogs bark constantly. And there have been a few people who, they don't even live in Penn South, who enjoy the community, and that's fine, but they don't have to hear the dogs. It is unbelievable. When I tell you I want to open up my door and scream, stop the barking, it's really, really upsetting. It's very disturbing to our life. And I think, yeah, we should go back to where we have the parks, and there are people who dog walk with multiple dogs who go there. So anyway, I am totally against it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate your keeping it short.
Thank you.
Margaret Kelly.
Yes.
That was you.
That was me. Yes, thank you. Building 4.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
The next one is
The next one would be Evelyn. I can try to see if her audio is working now.
let's give it a try.
Evelyn?
Marty, you did say you were going to cut off speakers and people are continuing to raise their hands.
No. This is the last speaker.
Evelyn would be the last one.
Evelyn is the last speaker, and she was on before with technical
I'll be
difficulties. feel, it doesn't feel like it's much better. I'm so sorry. We're going to end the conversation now from the public about the dog park. And we're now going to turn to the committee, and I see a bunch of hands. Thank you for the timekeeping. I couldn't have done that by myself. I tried, didn't work. And so I see Lowell, Carl, David, and let's start in that order.
Okay. First of all, I think we need to clarify. A lot of people have said we can't make this permanent or we should make this permanent. I don't think the discussion today is permanence because, as Marty, as you alluded to earlier, and I confirmed with Jordan, there's still, this park is still slated for a complete redesign come spring. So we're not talking about a permanent park here. We're talking about a permanent dog park. We're talking about basically from November through April or May right now. So we're talking about the winter. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and everyone is going to hate me about this, but I think I have a compromise that I'd like to suggest. The people who are using the dog park have indicated that, you know, among other things, it's really important for them to be able to take their dogs out in the morning before they go to work or when they get home. And the people who are complaining about the noise complain about it being all day long. So what if we restricted the hours to a couple hours in the morning, say 8 to 10, and then 4 to 6 or 4 to 7 at night, because it's going to get dark. Marty, as you alluded to earlier, it's dark at 4:30 now and it's miserable. But if we gave, 3 hours after work, say 4 to 7, and we shut the park in the middle of the day, because if people are going to work, then they don't need the dog run. And if people are working from home, they need more quiet. So for the winter, I would suggest we try something like that, where we're opening early morning and late afternoon, early evening to accommodate the people who need to take their dogs out, who work. And we've got it quiet during the day for the people who are home during the day, whether working or otherwise. And then on the weekends, I'd suggest we open a little bit later because most people are not going to work and don't need to walk their dogs at 8 o'clock in the morning. On Saturdays or Sundays, they could probably start a little bit later. So that's what I would like to throw out there as a compromise after listening to this for over the last hour, and try and see if we can thread the needle here. And nobody will be happy, but everyone will get a little bit of something. And, I've learned, being a lawyer by day, that in a negotiation, that if nobody is happy, it means you did a good job, because not everyone got what they wanted, but everyone didn't get shut out either. So that's what I'm suggesting.
Thank you, Lowell. Carl?
Yeah, thank you to everyone who spoke, and certainly understand where a lot of people are coming from on this. But I think I am kind of in the same thought as Lowell is on this. It's very clear that there is a need here. The park gets a lot of use, which is great. We also, I hate the idea of removing a public amenity or a public park that gets a lot of use. But we were talking about timed locks on the gates. I'm wondering if there is a way to have a break period on the park during the day. I would think perhaps the windows of time could be a little longer than 8 to 10, like 4 hours total all day. But I wonder, it seems to me that it can be a compromise position here that is not total removal of, of space that was once an alleyway, or not an alleyway, but a vacant spot where nothing, that didn't contribute to the community. This is contributing to the community in a way, in a lot of ways that we've heard from tonight. So I think we need to think more about how we can find some common ground on this issue. And if, that is a break of during the day, during some work hours, during the week, I think on the weekends, maybe it should be open the whole time. I think that's what we should think about. I mean, during this meeting, I've been listening to sirens and horns and screaming coming by the window. So, I'm sensitive to the issues of noise, but, that is reality of where we live, living in Manhattan on the west side. And I think that I think there's room for us to find some middle ground. And I kind of like the direction that Lowell was heading in there.
Thank you, Carl. David?
I don't think the noisy city argument supports the dog run. I think it supports having a home that's like a sanctuary and a retreat from the noisy city. It's not for nothing that the right to quiet enjoyment of your home is a principle of property law. And one of the speakers said that the dog run was essential. It's not. Sleep is essential. And I'm really concerned that the dog run got here by way of the closing of the Chelsea Waterside Park dog run. And I'm not sure it would ever have been initiated or accepted but for that. And if it's now to become a longer term thing, even after Chelsea Waterside opens, it's kind of like it got here under a false pretext that puts it under suspicion to me. And, one of the other people who spoke said that people moved into Penn South who owned dogs when there wasn't a dog run there. It's not something they're entitled to, but I feel very strongly that people really ought to have quiet enjoyment of their own homes and not have that the sanctuary of their homes invaded by noise all day long. Susan Wallet has repeatedly asked for a later opening time. This is a naturally occurring retirement community. As a retired person myself, one of the great pleasures of that is being able to sleep in a little bit in the morning. I think that anyone can walk their dog at 8 a.m. and maybe come back and use the dog run later in the day. So if it's not eliminated altogether, I don't think it should open before 10 a.m. And the idea of sort of self-policing of the dog run, of people doing a very good job of keeping the dogs quiet, that's great, but can it be sustained indefinitely? And, I think there are enough doubts about that we can't really trust that that's going to happen. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, David. Candace, hi.
Hi, I actually wanted what David just said about the sleeping in late. I read some of the 311 calls and just listening to people, and I feel like at 10 to 6, at 7 o'clock is when people started complaining on 311 calls. So maybe at 10 to 6 is more we do, and maybe we think maybe they were talking about enforcement. And I know there's Asher Dog Run where we have to key parks. Maybe for more of the national NORC, the naturally occurring retirement community, we give out those keys to them and let them use that, because it is they are the elderly there and it's less for them to go. And there are a couple of other different areas in Penn South between 28th and 29th that area of grass is not being used, and it's maybe we think about something in that area if we want to keep that in Penn South, the dog run. It's between buildings 10 and 9. That maybe we look if they want to actually have a dog run in that area. Maybe we look more in that area.
Candace, I want to interrupt you on that. We are talking about a dog park that exists on city property. The property you're talking about is Penn South property, and it's out of our jurisdiction.
It's out of it. Okay. Good to know on that part. So, but yeah, I would just like I said, continue what David said. I guess the later start, 10 o'clock or 10 a.m. I think it's a better time from what I've noticed about people's letters that they wrote. It seemed to just work a little bit better for them.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Roberta?
Hi. Yes. So we've heard a whole bunch of public statements, and we've also kind of heard from the council member's office and the feedback they've collected. And I've also looked at some 311 calls, and it seems to me that this is a really major public amenity that is a positive contribution to a lot of people in the community, dog owners and even some non-dog owners. likely more than those who are negatively impacted. However, the people who are negatively impacted are negatively impacted in a really, really deep and profound way. And I have a lot of respect for that and acknowledge that that is a real problem that the board and Councilmember Botcher's office should likely contend with. I do appreciate Lowell's suggestion of limiting hours. If there are concerns about hours, it also seems like there was an issue specifically with the people using or letting their dogs use the children's playground before the dog run hours began. And there might be something that parks could do to discourage or limit that, because it does seem like that was a contributing factor early in the morning and something that hasn't necessarily been addressed. And I'm wondering if parks could look at that. I think it's perfectly reasonable to look at other locations, but anything that we can do in this brief period of time before the redesign that prevents that space from being kind of used by people maybe engaging in illicit activities, I think is a positive one. So if not a dog run, something of that nature. And then finally, I don't know from an engineering standpoint if parks is considered adding either vegetation or other elements that might buffer some of the noise. Part of the complaints that people brought up were that it's basically like an alley between two buildings, it's fully concrete, and that potentially adding additional things within the space might assist with preventing the noise from being so offensive to people. And so if there are ways to compromise and make the situation better for as many residents in the community as possible, I think that would be really valuable.
Thank you. Sally?
Yeah, hi, I just want to weigh in support of Lowell's suggestion. I think we'd have to agree what the curtailment of hours would be, but that seems to make sense where we could please everybody that's involved. More people to seem to be in favor of the of keeping the park, but yet those people that are disturbed are still disturbed. I support a later opening, maybe 10 o'clock. The people that need to walk their dogs in the morning before they go to work, well, they could walk them. They can take them around the block. Perhaps a midday closure would also be helpful. But for the people that are either elderly or invalids that need the proximity of the park, they really need to be considered in this equation. So I just, yeah, I'm with Lois thinking, and to David's comment, David made a comment about sleep. Well, this isn't open at night. I mean, right now it's closing at 8. That doesn't mean we can't close it at 6, but people aren't being deprived of sleep. So I don't see that as an issue, but people that are working from home are definitely affected. And that can be addressed with just by curtailing the hours. So I don't think it's that complicated. And then people respecting, trying to keep their dogs quiet if they are noisy animals. That's it.
Sally. Tina? And after Carl speaks, he'll speak for the second time. Okay, I'll go for Jennifer Cook. Let's think about curtailing this conversation and moving on to the next agenda. So there's 4 more speakers. Sally.
I'm up.
No, Sally's up, and it starts.
Sally just spoke.
No, Sally's done. It's Tina's turn.
My bad. Thank you very much.
No worries. Okay. I was making notes as people spoke, coming up with ideas. So not in any order here. Okay. So I'm speaking as a former dog owner. My dog was just euthanized after 15 years. And I'm familiar with the barking from both inside my apartment and outside, as well as, other dogs that frequent the area. I'm also speaking from the perspective of being the co-chair of a committee that is no longer in existence with CB4 with quality of life. And I'd say 80% of the quality of life issues as reflected in statistics in the city had to do with noise. And yes, we know noise, it has an adverse physical effect on human beings when it's loud. So one of the things that we did in our committee had to do with audio engineering. And that provides a prompt, fair, and impartial scientific approach to the noise. So I would maybe suggest an audio engineer to make assessments in terms of where the most disruptive barking is heard. Because from my experience, and you might know, sound travels, it's a physical thing. Sound's got to go somewhere like water. So it goes in very unpredictable ways. And a scientist who deals with noise issues will be able to make assessments. And to that end, make maybe surprising recommendations in ways that the sound can be remediated. The other thing is in terms of the April closing, and maybe Therese could speak to that, because I think we have to be super clear about what to expect from the Parks Department. Is this, because if we have to weigh in to redesign the park, that has not happened just yet. So what the timeline is in terms of the redesign, what that involves, and yeah, so just clarification on that. I love the measures that Sherry had articulated. Super thoughtful, very practical. Kudos to her and the others that came up with these recommendations and enactments. One idea that people have talked about is limiting the hours, and we can maybe fine tune what those hours would be. So I think that might be one thing to think about. I'm not saying I'm wholly behind it, but I think it can be explored as an option. Today I went by the park to, get an update in terms of what was happening there. Yes, there was barking, happy barking, distressed barking, but barking. Dogs will bark. That is the nature of the animal. So whether they're, so anyway, so part of what I heard was dogs kind of fighting with each other and playing with each other. The fighting was kind of scary to me as a dog owner. And I was pretty amazed that people actually put their hands to separate the dogs, because there can be injury. Several people fell down. So dogs, when they're running around, cannot be managed as much as we'd like. It's unpredictable, even from super good dogs. So one other idea I had, in association with getting an audio engineer, again, this could happen fast. It's not expensive, and CB4 has recommended this numerous times. And so one crazy idea that I had, maybe it's appropriate or not, but maybe one remediation in addition to the time of the openings, would be to maybe erect a sail above the dog park, which Therese might, be able to speak to. It's in the parks already. Parks Department knows how to do it. They know how to source it, and it can happen very quickly. In addition to possibly dampening the sound so that it doesn't go upwards, but so that it's stopped, can also act as, helping the folks that are there where there is rain. And so to hopefully make it maybe a double-edged sword, the materials might be different from what is typical, maybe thicker, but that's an idea that an audio engineer could, could discuss as a possible partial solution. So, audio engineers come up with very novel ideas. So I would suggest a scientific approach in addition to other practical ones. Thank you.
Tina, 2 more speakers. Carl.
Thank you for the indulgence, Chair, for my second. This will be very, very quick. I just want to say that, we did not hear from anyone that sleep was being disrupted. We heard that the problem was barking constantly throughout the day. So I would just pose to the committee as we're discussing that curtailing hours on the front end or back end is not really going to solve the problem that we're hearing. So, and it would also, that's when people need to walk their dogs the most. So I would, again, just think about if we're going to limit hours to think a little outside the box, maybe something midday, because I think that will get at the problem. That's all.
Thank you, Carl. And finally, Jennifer and David, you just put your hand up, right? All right, 2 more. Jennifer?
Yes, hi. So I just had a couple questions. First of all, what was promised to everyone, all the residents, whenever this dog park was opened?
Temporary. It
Temporary.
was presented as a temporary dog park.
Temporary dog park because the Chelsea one was being renovated?
That's correct.
And the Chelsea one is opening again, possibly in a couple weeks?
Hot off the press from a good source, Mr. Kern has told us it'll be before Thanksgiving.
Okay, so within the next couple weeks. So we said originally that this was going to be temporary and people tried to live with the barking, and clearly it's bothering quite a few people that have not been at peace in their own home for what seems like quite a while. How long has the dog park been open? Because the Chelsea one's been under construction for a while now.
I'm going to say it opened up in May or April or May, but somebody may know more accurately than I.
Okay, so it's been a little while that they've been dealing with this. So I guess my question is, given how many residents of Penn South are being bothered by this in their own home every single day, if we said at the outset that it was going to close and it was just a temporary solution, why is that now changing? Why is it not still being considered a temporary solution?
I don't have an answer for you, and I don't think anybody in the room does.
Okay. I just think it's worth considering that something that is a nuisance to so many people. I'm not saying dogs are a nuisance, and I don't want that to be misconstrued. But just that something that the sound that's bothering so many people that has been established in monthly meetings that we've had, that it's a very real problem. And so if we said it was going to be temporary, I'm just wondering, I just think it's worth paying attention to what about the situation has changed, because we likely wouldn't have put a park in an area that would have reverberated sound back and forth like that, if not for the other park closing. And now that it's reopening, everybody would be in the exact same situation they were in previously if they just went back to the other park that's at 23rd. So that's just my 2 cents. I think that the noise complaint should be taken very seriously just because it does affect so many people.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your 2 cents. We appreciate it. David? And then
Okay.
Actually, after you, David, I'm going to ask, somebody said that Therese should speak, and after you, I'm going to pass it over to her.
Okay, and the issue of sleep, I think a lot of people would be really annoyed if they were told that going forward, they were going to have an alarm clock put in their apartment that went off at 8 a.m. every day. Sure, you can go to sleep earlier, but should people have to do that in their own home? People can also walk a little farther to a dog run. And several of the people we spoke to, clearly their mental health was being impacted by this. So I think it's a health issue, and that trumps the convenience of a dog run.
Thank you, David. Are you willing to chime in, Therese? Or were you indicating you wanted to?
Yes, I'd like to. I've taken extensive notes. I've done my job here by making sure that I have everything down to speak with Anthony Perez, our new borough commissioner. A lot of you may not know that this came in during a transition from one borough commissioner to the other. And this was meant to be a temporary measure while both dog runs were being constructed, or one of them was being paved over, not really paved over, sorry, painted over to make it better, which is DeWitt Clinton, and also the dog run at Chelsea Waterside. So I've heard that somebody's also being impacted at 1 a.m., 3 a.m., 7 a.m. And those things are enforcement issues. And it sounds like someone has a key that shouldn't have a key. And we've never given out keys. There is a combo lock on the gate inside the park, not outside the park. So I've changed the lock already. So I need to know how old that complaint is. And if we're still having 1 a.m., 3 a.m. complaints of noise problems. That said, we also got Chelsea Green, which is also a similar situation with the noise conditions being aimed right at people. And sometimes noise goes straight up a building because of, like you said, the acoustic properties. Unfortunately, there is no water at this dog park because it has no water source for anything in the park. So there's no way to put shrubbery in there to be able to buffer noise. And we've put in sails, and in the past that could happen quite quickly when we had enough workers with the expertise to be able to install sails and structures like that. We don't have them anymore. So we're at a point where it's not much we can do besides changing the hours, which would still have the complaints that we have. So I'm going to bring back that we're looking at to changing the hours and enforcing the issues with dogs early in the morning. And the park has been abused in the mornings and other times with dogs running around and using it. So that's always been an ongoing problem. So it's nice to see that it's so active. It's nice to see that there's no longer the problems that it used to have, and it took those things away. And also, you created a community by creating the dog run, and everybody came together very close to do that. So having that community go away would be horrible. And I think there were some good suggestions about asking about the handball court, which I will take back to the new commissioner. The handball court at Chelsea Park. And there was also a suggestion about using the lawns, which is really not great because dogs on the lawns and the dirt areas is also very problematic for the trees and the health of all of the plants that we have there. And it's not big enough. So yeah, I'm going to take back every single note that I took tonight, and I listened very carefully to what everyone said and typed as fast as I could. But if there's also a transcript, I'd love to have it, just in case I missed something.
There's a recording. I don't think the recording is transcribed.
No, we do have a transcription, so I can forward that to you too.
Thank you, Therese. You have ended this conversation. I'll go back to Roberta in a second. You have ended this conversation in a very, I think, productive way, because all the speakers know that the information is going to go back to parks, that we have given everybody an opportunity to say what they believe, that all of this will wind up being input for when we have another discussion about what will go into this area at the time that we talk about the redesign of the park. I can imagine how long that probably needs to be an agenda all by itself. But anyway, we've been on this for a long time now. And I want to thank you for bringing, Teresa, I want to thank you for bringing it to parks, and you'll let us know what the reactions are. That I'd appreciate that too.
Absolutely.
Great conversation, lots of information. I know there are strong disagreements on both sides. And I think we performed a service for the community tonight by listening to this conversation, as certainly it will be input for what happens next. Excuse me on that. Excuse me on the phone. Roberta.
Just very, very briefly, I wanted to just bring up the pickleball courts. I mean, the handball courts, I Freudian slip, because we've been talking about them for quite some time as both handball courts, and some people are using them as pickleball courts as well. I did want to flag that they do seem to be in regular use, though that use often appear seasonal. So like, this is about the time of year when they start perhaps going down in their usage, but particularly in the mornings in the summer, they do appear to be quite well used. And I think that there might be a residential opposition to removing those courts. And so I did just want to raise that it could potentially be an issue, and that, you know, someone should make that note.
Right, you are. And
Duly noted.
And will you also please remember that one of those handball, or some of those handball courts at Chelsea Park were to be transformed into squash courts. And I don't really know where that stands. That was with Hudson Guild. Is that
Yeah.
dead?
That hasn't come back up, and it's not alive at the moment, so.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that update. I move we move the agenda. And the next conversation is if folks are here for the multi-energy efficiency program.
Yep. So I'm sorry, Marty. Marty, before we move, there's no business or that we need to do on behalf of that court. That's just discussion.
Well, I don't see a letter. Do you? What kind of a letter would you be seeing, Will?
Well, I mean, I don't know if there was something that collected sort of what we heard today, sort of with the concerns about this moving forward. And it was sounding to me like there was starting to be a consensus about an hours restriction that Parks Department, or a limit of hours that they could implement based on some of the feedback that we've heard, or if this is something we're considering as remaining, to have those hours in effect. It just, seems like we just went through a lot of listening for no business on this item.
From my perspective, I don't agree that there's a consensus on the hours changing.
Well, I said it's starting
the
to.
Hours,
I think
the hours changing doesn't solve the problem for people who live right above the park, and the noise will continue during those periods of time when the park is open. So I'm not sure where you're going with a letter. I'm not sure that we have agreement.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Who's speaking?
That's Tina.
Tina.
Yeah, I mean, we do need to do something as a temporary measure that's easy, fast, and effective. And I agree with Carl and with Lowell. This is something that could be done right away and be a compromise until we find a more detailed way to address this. But I think expediency is really important.
Hello,
Marty, I know, I don't know if there's really a consensus here, but there's a way we determine whether or not we have a consensus, and it's called a vote. So to the extent that Carl was proposing, I think Carl is proposing a letter that asks the Parks Department to look at reduced hours for this dog park from now until spring or whenever we're going to look at it. I would second that motion.
Thank you. I hear a motion on the floor. Candice?
Yeah, it was kind of just going off what everybody else was saying. I thought this was supposed to be a temporary thing. And if the other dog park is supposed to be open in 2 weeks, I don't understand why we're still kind of going through this. Are we trying to, was this to extend it? Because it was supposed to be temporary until they reopen, but if they're going to open in 2 weeks, then why was this discussion held?
The discussion was held because the community board and the council member have been hearing a lot of conversation both for and against the park. And we were asked to participate in giving the community an opportunity to speak about that park. I I now am facing, and now have, is I'm not facing, Carl and Lowell have put a motion on the floor that asks that we write a letter that says something like, because of all of the noise complaints about the dog park, we recommend that the dog park hours be shortened. I don't think anybody has given me specific, I mean, Lowell did make some specific times, but maybe it needs to be something that we throw into parks, because opening and closing the park is also going to require some parks activity. So I throw it back at you. Do we write a letter that is vague about shortening the hours, or do we write a letter that's specific about shortening hours? And what else, if anything, do we put in the letter?
I would move that we do it specific, because, you know, we can talk and talk and talk, and, you know, these folks that are having these noise issues there's no recourse. So I would move that.
I want to point out that Lowell already moved 8 to 10 in the morning and 4 to 7. Something like.
Yeah, something like 4 to 7 is what I said, Marty, just because I was thinking from what we heard tonight, people wanted before work hours and after work hours. And then I'm specifically thinking about the gentleman, the ESL teacher, who needs quiet during the day.
You in fact did say 4 to 7 before, but I stumbled over it because those are hours when it's already dark. 4 to 7 is fine with me.
Just an idea.
So what's on the floor at the moment?
It's Carl's motion. I just
okay. Well, I didn't make a motion necessarily, but
I'm putting words in your mouth, Carl.
I think we should have a motion on this. So I would motion that we would and maybe I might need a little. I think this is the first motion I've made since being a community board member. So
the letter has to be written anyway.
So I think I would motion that we would write a letter that supports the dog walk, but after hearing from neighbors and residents who are concerned about disruptions of the activities during the day, that the dog park have hours that are opened from 8 a.m. to 11 and then 4 to 7. I'm very happy to hear other tweaks on that. But I do think that based on what we've heard today, that we should, we need to offer something that adjusts the hours here. So
may I suggest some amendments to what you said? You may in fact mean what I'm about to say, that the letter will say that the dog park was always supposed to be temporary, and that temporary will extend at least until next spring, when we begin discussions about the design of the new park. In the meantime, there have been a number of complaints about noise from the park. In order to mitigate that noise, we suggest the dog park hours be reduced and the park only be open from 8 to 10 and 4 to 7. What I took out of what you said, Carl, was that we support the dog park. There's no agreement in the room about whether we support the park or not.
Again,
So
Marty, Marty, I'm going to object to that.
I'd like to leave that out of the letter.
Marty, that's Carl's motion. You know, you can't say that we don't agree because we haven't had a vote on it. So I'm going to object to that. You know, if that's Carl's motion, that's Carl's motion, and I'm seconding the motion. If people don't agree, we can take a friendly amendment. We can vote it down, but that was Carl's motion, and I don't think it's on you to say we don't agree.
If I may amend the motion, I could say that we support the temporary dog run, with something along the lines of until the new park. Maybe I need a little help with this, but until the Chelsea Waterside run is opened, that we can evaluate whether it should stay. But I think supporting the temporary dog run with a change in hours is what my motion would be.
Thank you. I appreciate that change.
Mm-hmm.
Does that fit with you, Lowell? You seconded it.
That's fine. I mean, Marty, you were making a
I was
judgment.
overstepping my role as chair. I understand.
You were making a judgment. That's all.
I was trying to direct traffic.
No harm. No offense.
Right. I will second Carl's motion as it stands.
I would like a qualifier on that. You know, I second the motion in principle. I don't know how we come to an agreement on what the curtailment of hours are. There was no mention in the motion, as far as I know. I mean, I think weekends should be treated differently. I see no reason for the park to open before 10 or 11 on a Saturday or Sunday. People aren't going off to work. And I understand that, I mean, for the people that are really bothered by the noise, and to David's point about sleep, again, I'm mostly supporting this because I feel the sense of community that has developed around it. I see the need of the handicapped. I see the need of the elderly. But people that want to walk that take their dogs out at 8 o'clock in the morning can walk them around the block. They don't have to go for a run in the park. So I don't know how we come to an agreement on what the curtailed hours are. But if we're going to write a letter, I think we have to, you know, we have to agree on that. And unless the weekend hours are shortened with a later opening, unless we consider those morning hours that, you know, people really in a situation where they have to walk their dogs can go around the block. Many people don't live near dog parks. That's what they do.
Yeah.
My dog is not in the dog park. They get up in the morning, they walk the dog around the block, and they come home. So these people can do the same thing.
Please, Carl, either you do it or I'll do it.
Well, I would be willing to amend for the hours on the weekend to remain what they are. But I guess my question is, before we, you know, jump down this rabbit hole here, to Therese, is a midday, you know, restriction on the hours, is that realistic? Is that something that can actually happen?
I have to ask. I want to say yes, and I need to look at my staffing and what we do during the day, because I don't want to interrupt their cleaning, because we have so few. So it would have to be something we figure out logistically how to do that.
We have faith in you, Therese.
So is it possible for Therese to come back with a recommendation to us? I think she understands the point of what we're trying to accomplish. So maybe Therese explores the best options that works for the Parks Department and then comes back with a proposal that considers all the concerns that have been laid out here. Does that make sense?
We had hours of operation that we're taking care of at Stuyvesant Park. There's a dog run there that operates on 2 bands of time. For that purpose. It's actually closed during the afternoon, so the children have somewhere to play. So someone actually comes in and dismantles the gates at 2 points of the day, and that's what it used to be like. I don't know if it's open all day now, but yeah, that was usually done by volunteers. And if that's something that can also be explored simultaneously, that would be easier for me.
So I feel a little uncomfortable.
May I make a suggestion? And Carl, this is, again, I'm doing what Lowell tells me not to do, but let me try it and then see where you go with it. We're writing a letter to Parks. We're appreciating the fact that there's an interim park there. We're appreciating the fact that there's been noise issues, and therefore we are suggesting that the park be open from 8 to 10 in the morning and from 4 to 7 in the afternoon. That on weekends it be open from 10 to 12 in the morning and from 4 to 7 in the afternoon. And that at weekends and holidays, it'll be open those periods of time. And that parks will implement that to the best of their ability and will let us know whatever kind of problems they may have with it.
I get
your court, Carl.
Yeah, well, I guess I just am a little, you know, arbitrarily, you know, I do hear what everyone's saying about the concern around the noise and the hours, but, you know, I guess I want to recommend something that is actually possible. So, you know, to what Sally was suggesting, you know, maybe instead of us setting the hours right now, that the letter say that we are, you know, concerned about the noise complaints and that we would like, can Parks make some operational recommendations about ways that we can curtail hours to solve for the noise problem that are.
Would it be better, Carl, to put the hours that I articulated in it with something that says something like these hours, and we ask Parks for their judgment?
Yeah, I just think if we just throw this back at Parks and say, this is what we heard, solve the problem, This goes to full board at the beginning of December. The letter will go out to parks in the middle of December. And we won't hear anything back until the middle of January, which means our February meeting. And then that goes to March full board, and we're already at the point where we're redesigning this park. So I think we need to do something more definitive now, even if it's just, as Marty just said, suggesting that, you know, these are hours that were suggested at committee, and we'd like parks to look at something along these lines. And Marty, I'm going to point out, Jennifer's had her hand up for a long time, and we all keep interrupting.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I apologize.
Yeah, I'm sorry too. I was talking over.
I just wanted to clarify, are we talking about the next couple weeks until, because I think I heard competing things. Are we talking about the hours for the next few weeks until the 23rd Street Park reopens? Or are we
No.
talking about going all the way to April?
I've been interpreting this, I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, as asking for hours on this temporary park for as long as it is a temporary park. And that could go well into the middle of next year.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that I'm heavily in the minority, but I do think that the noise being an ongoing issue every day that these people have dealt with for months and are continuing to deal with on a daily basis is a very serious concern. And so given that the new park is going to be open soon, I guess I would just register my vote when we do a motion. I would just vote no. Is that how this works? Or do I suggest that, like, do we do another motion where I suggest that we close it for the interim when the Chelsea Park opens? Because that's what, that based on the conversation we had tonight, that is what I would recommend. And that we have further discussions after that to see about hours, to see about a possible reopening. But that given the amount of distress that this is causing, with other options being available in just a couple of weeks, that we take, I don't know, kind of take a pause on hours and take a pause on, and especially given the timeline that Lowell had for how long this would take, and kind of address these concerns that have been brought to us month after month, kind of address them now by saying, we're going to go back to the 23rd Street Park as soon as it's open, and we'll address this park later on.
Well, we have a motion on the floor now for a letter for the reduced hours. If we would need to vote on that, and then if you wanted to, at that point, you could make a motion for a different letter, Jennifer.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, Jennifer, and I apologize. Could you just sort of reiterate for me what exactly you're suggesting, just like in one sentence?
Oh, sure. So I'm suggesting that based on the feedback that we got tonight, that as soon as the 23rd Street Park reopens, that's being redone right now, that we, because this was a temporary park, that we close it. It gives people who are experiencing all of the noise a little bit of a break from that. It'll give everybody a chance to kind of come down a few levels, I think, from what they're experiencing. And then we can kind of, as a community, decide what happens with that space, since it was introduced as a temporary measure, to have it actually be temporary. And we go back to how it was, because that's what these people have relied on for these past few months.
I see two ways to go here. One is to make what Jennifer just said an amendment, not a friendly amendment. It would have to be voted on separately, to say that the hours of the park should be what we talked about before, and that the park should be closed when Chelsea Waterside Park opens up. The other way is to not put this on to do what Lowell just suggested, is vote on this as it's now been articulated. If it passes, then we leave it alone. If it fails, then take up Jennifer's comment as.
Well, I would, in terms of, and I see there are hands up, so I don't mean to speak out of turn here, but in terms of the motion, I would be open if we want to I could rescind the motion and we could revisit this once the park is open. But I did think that we heard once the park closed is reopened. But I do not think it makes sense to close the park, especially while the other park is closed. And if we want to revisit once the Chelsea Waterside is open, and then see how things are affecting this, because we did hear that this is and a lot of people who even spoke in opposition were supportive of a temporary measure. So, if we want to revisit this about curtailing hours once both parks are open, I would be willing to amend my motion to say that instead of setting hours based on, the use of this park while the other one remains closed.
So Carl, you're suggesting that your letter would say what exactly that we?
Well, I guess I would
That
to
we
go
come
back
back
to
in
where we
December
started.
or after the other park is open and then decide?
I guess I would remove my motion and say that we could table this discussion until the other park is open. I mean, I don't think it makes total sense to there's a lot of use happening at this park right now because the other one is not open. So, maybe this is something that we just need to revisit, and then we can discuss hours when the actual volume of people using it is going to change because of the other park being open.
So you would
which you said is going to be in 2 weeks.
I have it on good information that it's supposed to be open before Thanksgiving, so we could revisit this at our December meeting.
I'm going to let the conversation go. I'll talk to Roberta, who's next, and then Jennifer, and then Katie.
Just to clarify, we no longer have a motion.
Well, I mean, the motion is
table.
It's in the air at the moment.
Sorry. Could one of you speak at?
The chair can speak, not me.
It's in the air at the moment. Carl is thinking about taking it off the table, but he hasn't yet.
Okay. I will wait to figure out what happens there. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Carl, I think I may have misspoke or made it confusing earlier. I definitely don't think that we should close the park that's open now, that's serving the community before the one on 23rd Street is open. So I apologize if that was the impression that I gave. But what I was thinking is that once that park reopened, then we could close the one that was supposed to be temporary and then try to figure out if we were going to reopen it in the interim, what those hours would be and what that would look like. But yeah, I didn't want to just close everything without an option for people to take their dogs somewhere.
Katie?
Hi, I agree with Jennifer in that this was proposed as a temporary measure while the other parks were being under construction. And I think, since it's going to open within 2 weeks, I don't know that there's necessarily a reason to do anything now. I think all of the discussion and information we have is great feedback for when the redesign of this entire space comes up. And then maybe there's a more appropriate location for a dog run that is not in this specific location that is causing echoes and all these other issues. But I mean, it's supposed to be temporary. And I think this board is well aware of when the public is told one thing and then suddenly that shifts without any warning. There are a lot of people who seem to have begrudgingly agreed to this temporary solution, and we can't just turn around and say, oh, I think we want to make it permanent all of a sudden. So I think it makes sense. This is a great discussion, but once the Chelsea Waterside Park dog run opens, the temporary park should close. And then the park discussion there will reopen once the full redesign is on the table.
Tina? Thank you, Katie.
Tina, you're muted.
Right, I agree with your motion, and as a temporary measure, I think there should be one in case there is a delay in the open. So if there is a delay, I would just suggest 10 to 1 or 10 to 1 and 4 to 7. I think what David was saying, an alarm clock at 8 a.m. When people can simply walk their dogs, it should be respected.
Well, just in terms of my motion. I think that given that November we're almost halfway through it now, that we should maybe table any adjustments to the hours or whether it should be there or not until the other park is open, and we should revisit in December. So I think I'm going to withdraw, even though it brings me sadness because it was my first one. I think I'm going to withdraw my motion, and I think we should talk about this in December. So what you were going to do first was right, Marty. I'm sorry that I kicked everyone off into a 20-minute discussion.
Oh, no problem, Carl. You just added an hour to it. It's what the hey, man.
Well, we needed to figure out what
we do, and
what
the
we wanted to
conversation
do with this. Well, with what we heard for an hour. So
look, we've hammered out a whole lot of stuff, and if we can figure out how to review the stuff that we hammered out in this past hour as part of our discussion the next time we have it, that will shorten the conversation. It's never going to be a short conversation. Anytime you talk about dogs, it goes on and on and on. And I expressed my position in the very beginning. I'm not going to repeat it. My position hasn't changed. I'm just saying, having listened to this conversation, I don't see anything that would change my conversation, but we do need to talk in December about whether this temporary park gets closed after the other park is open.
Marty, I would just make one request. If we're putting this on the agenda for December,
It's already tricky.
That we not open this up to an entire 2-hour public discussion, that we just get some feedback from an appointed person on each side, what happened in terms of the volume once Chelsea Waterside opens, and leave it at that. We don't need to hear the same things we heard tonight again in December.
I completely agree with that. Tonight was supposed to give the public the opportunity to express themselves. They have, and we need to take that seriously. I know several people have taken notes, including me, about what people have said. So when we talk about it again, hopefully some of their representations will be accurately repeated. And no, we should not have another public meeting about what people think about whether the dog park should be open or not. I see 2 more hands. At the moment, as you speak, Candace and Jennifer, at the moment, we're not writing a letter. Candace.
Okay, so that was what I was going to go into, is that we then make a motion because it was supposed to be a temporary. What are we going to do about it? I mean, are we going to wait? I guess you said December, we're going to wait now?
Nobody has changed the temporary status of this park. It was presented to us as a temporary park.
So,
Now, I know there are people who would like to make it permanent, but at the moment, as I understand what this park is, it was told to us that it was temporary, and I believe that it should be temporary, but what I believe doesn't necessarily have to happen. Candace, you're not finished talking.
It was just that it is temporary, and in 2 weeks before we're going to go to the board soon, should we have a letter saying that what we agree about the temporary? Because this is what it was temporary.
So my guess is what will come back to us in December, especially after Chelsea Waterside Park is open, is somebody is going to say the park, the temporary status of the park should be revoked and it should be made permanent. What do you think? But right now, as far as I understand it, correct me somebody if I'm wrong, it's a temporary park.
Isn't it always going to be temporary because of the redesign? It's just a question of if you close it in like December or April. Is that what the question is there?
I don't have a clue.
Yes, Roberta, that's where we're December or April. Like, we're trying to give peace to people that live there at the moment. So why not give them this little break from December and April until we figure out what we're doing with this park? And if it's a redesign of the echo and the trees and this and that, if it's going to be a park or if it's going to be a squash or a pickleball, who knows what's going to happen over there in that little corner.
Well, the conversation, Candace, about what the park should be in the future isn't the one we're having now.
But no, the conversation we're having
that-
now is about the temporary park and whether or not to approve it into April, I'm guessing.
That's right. Does the park close? Is the two roads that I see, correct me if I'm wrong, the two roads I see is the park is temporary. Once Chelsea Waterside Park is open, it should shut down. I think that's what you've been saying, Candace.
Yes.
And that is the definition of temporary. Once the new park is open, it should close. The other definition of temporary that I don't agree with is it's temporary until the park is redesigned. That isn't what we were presented. We were presented it was temporary until Chelsea Waterside Park reopens. But I have heard the position stated tonight that temporary stays until the park is redesigned. So those are the two roads I see.
Can we make a motion, because this is going to happen before the next meeting, the Chelsea Waterside Park reopening? Can we make a motion tonight that once it reopens, the temporary status of the park we discussed, the Penn South Park, that it closes? Is that a possibility?
Well, I would say that we table making a judgment on this park until December.
So
which it, like, I don't think we should be on record saying it needs to close today. I think we should wait till December. We don't have enough information to make that.
I guess
judgment.
what new
I have to say-
information is coming in December? Sorry,
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just wondering what new information was coming in December, since we weren't going to hear from the public in December, what new information we would have at that time.
The new park we're hearing will be Chelsea Waterside will be reopened, which will
Right.
change the use and the dynamic at this dog run.
I guess I think that we're in disagreement on what should happen. I hear that you're saying that we should leave both the Chelsea Waterside Park, let it reopen, and leave the Penn South Park open while the Chelsea Waterside reopens. And I think I just have a different opinion that we should close the Penn South when Chelsea Waterside reopens. So in that sense, I guess, is that something that we talk about again in December, or could we vote tonight on what if we leave it open or we go ahead and close it? I just figured with all of the conversation that we had and from hearing from the public and from the noise being something that people will wake up to tomorrow morning and the day after that and the day after that, it just seems like because they've been coming to meetings for months now that it could be helpful to make a decision instead of kicking it down the road.
Respecting the hands that are up, but
Katie, yeah, I'll come back to you, Carl. Put your hand up. That's the way to go. Katie's next.
As a public member, can I make motions? I don't know how that works.
I think you can as a public member,
For
actually.
committee, right?
I need to be corrected on that. You're a member of the committee.
I would like to make a motion that we appreciate all the conversation that we had from the community about this, and that there clearly are a lot of factors on both sides, and that as was decided when this became a temporary dog run, that once Chelsea Waterside is open, we give a 1-week overlap between the two parks and then close the temporary park because it was slated to be temporary until Chelsea Waterside opens. And then we can invite the people who are interested in a dog run to come back when we have discussion about the overall redesign of the park to determine where a better location for a dog park might be within that new redesign.
Second that motion.
Who seconded it?
Discussion?
Who's the seconder?
Candace.
No, Candace made the motion.
No, Katie made the motion and Candace seconded the
Thank you.
motion.
Thank you.
Discussion on the
think-
motion? I just think we should, why after talking about this more, why I withdrew mine is I really don't think we should just set arbitrary timelines or on this right now. So I don't think it's appropriate to say we want this park closed at X amount of time, or that we will, make a decision after X amount of time that it has been open. It is clear that this is an amenity to a lot of folks. So I think we should wait. I will vote against this motion as it stands. I think that we should wait until the Chelsea Waterside is opened, after we've had a couple of weeks of the volume of folks will change. As we heard tonight, many people said that they would go back to that park, and then make a decision with all the factors in play here. I don't think that we should vote tonight to close, to say anything about it should close by this date or this time. I think we need to, we've heard a lot tonight about how this is affecting folks, which we will take into consideration, but we don't have all of the final details here. So I will not vote for this motion. And I think that we should table this and pick it back up in December.
I don't know whether I heard a motion to table there.
Well, I can't table the motion. So I'm saying I would vote for this. I would vote against the motion.
Technically, we can vote to table a motion.
I think we should let the conversation run a little bit longer.
Yeah, okay.
Roberta.
I will keep it brief because I think Carl captured my sentiments. It does seem that there are a really large number of people in this community who are experiencing a massive amount of benefit from this public amenity. And I think that is why there is a call, like, and a push to keep it for longer. I have a lot of concerns about that because we've heard how that's affected people's quality of life who live in the vicinity, but to completely take that off the table without offering it maybe a trial, I think would ultimately be a mistake that would impact potentially hundreds of people. And so I would really appreciate if we could table this till next month.
David.
Given that this dog run was created, the stimulus for it, the whole catalyst was the closure of Chelsea Waterside Park, I would stand by the motion. That's how it came here. And if it just kind of takes root amid all of this kind of unrest over it, I think all of the voices against it are, to me, enough evidence that once Chelsea Waterside reopens, the experiment that we've had of having a dog run here should end, and that it should end sooner rather than later, and simply kind of leaving it here and kicking the can down the road. It just gets more and more ingrained. And as I said, it's something that wouldn't be here in the first place, but for the closure of Chelsea Waterside Park. So I would stick with the motion as Katie presented it. And in terms of talking about reintroducing a dog run in the redesign of the park, I would say solicit community input on the reintroduction of a dog run, if any, in the new park.
Thank you. Lowell.
We have now gone a full 180 as a committee, just like all of the voices that we've heard from the community. We started off with a motion to limit the hours, then we were going to do something else, and now we're at a motion to just shut the damn thing down. I would urge Katie to withdraw this motion, and let's let this ride for a month and see where things are. I don't think we have. I think we're all over the place as the community is, and I don't think it's ripe for decision tonight. I thought it was, and I've come around completely the other way now. And Katie, I'm urging you to withdraw the motion.
I I get, that does make sense, but again, I just want to say that this was floated as a temporary plan, temporary. And I think there's no way to make a permanent solution without acknowledging the fact that the dog run as it currently stands is supposed to be temporary. So I think it's fine. I'll rescind the motion and we revisit this next month. But I think we have to understand that we can't expect to keep this dog run open throughout the whole redesign process, because the whole nature of it was to be temporary until Chelsea Waterside opened. I think it does make sense to see what happens once Chelsea Waterside opens, but I also think we do have to be prepared to confirm our original, thought of this being temporary, and not just saying, okay, well, we'll just keep it and we'll just wait and we'll just figure it out. Because it seems like a lot of times we have temporary things, people get very attached to them, and then there's no way to change it. And there was never really any robust input when this was made temporary. So I'll rescind it for now, but I think we should revisit this and the temporary nature of this park at the December meeting.
Marty, I would urge you to move to the next agenda.
I accept that statement, and we will move to the next agenda, but I have the following request. There are two motions that are not on the table because we've tabled them. I would like both sides to send me a motion, one that says it's a temporary park and it should be closed, the other that says it's a temporary park, it shouldn't be closed until the new park is there, and these are what the hours should be. And I think that we should distribute those motions to the committee before the next meeting, look at them, vote them up or down, as opposed to spending a whole lot of time having this conversation again. Will you do that, Katie? And will you do that, Carl? I saw Carl nodding his head, but I don't think.
Yeah, sure. I just want to clarify. I'm not saying close it down right now. I'm saying close it once Chelsea Waterside is open, because it was supposed to be temporary in nature.
It's your motion.
Clarifying.
It's your motion. Make it clear and send it to me. And
Okay.
Carl, it's your motion. Make it clear and send it to me. One of them is going to, or they'll both go down and we'll be in limbo again, but I'm just trying to make the next meeting go faster. Next agenda item. Thank you, Carl and Katie. I appreciate your work. Who's speaking? You started to speak before and you got cut off. Are you still here? Rebecca, I can't hear you. Whatever's going on, I don't see you as muted, but now I try a magic fiddle. Try something. Nope, not hearing you. I know you're screaming, but I hear you all the way.
Can everyone hear me?
Whoever's speaking, I can hear. Yes.
Great. So we're both in the office right now. So she's going to come over here and she will present at my desk. But good evening, everyone.
Hi, Joseph.
I will let Rebecca in a moment. We're going to share our screen as well, if that's acceptable.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for having us on tonight. Really appreciate, especially Roberta, for reaching out and just giving us this opportunity to talk about something that I'm sure everyone's aware of, hopefully at this point, with our climate goals, which would be Local Law 97, and the different public programs that are available to help with compliance. So Joseph and I, or actually go back. Just to introduce ourselves real quick. So I am the outreach coordinator. Joseph is the outreach manager for the Con Edison and New York State affordable and market rate multifamily energy efficiency programs. Unfortunately, there was supposed to be a third person with us who's representing New York City Accelerator. They were unable to make it, but I will be presenting their slides on their behalf. Excellent. All right, so bear with me while I try and explain what the New York City Accelerator does. So the Accelerator is a city program that's designed to help building owners, property managers, developers, and other key decision makers work towards the state energy and carbon reduction goals, as well as the city goals. The program is part of the city's long-term goal to help the market transform how buildings operate and are built. A few ways that the program works in the market includes providing technical assistance, especially in relationship to energy benchmarking and audit results, using those results to identify which building upgrades to implement, ranging from smaller projects like LED lighting or larger ones such as a new heating system or roof insulation and replacement, providing RFP templates to solicit proposals from what's known as a service provider and contractor or energy service provider. And lastly, an important part that the Accelerator assists with is helping buildings access financing opportunities. So whether that's New York Green Bank, PACE financing, or various private firms. The connect there, his name's Andrew. I'm happy to introduce anyone for financing conversations there. Next slide, please. So how does the program work? So New York City Accelerator works with buildings that are above 5,000 square feet. And for smaller buildings, they can refer them to a partner organization such as the Center for New York City Neighborhoods, who specialize in that market segment. And yeah, basically it's, you would give New York City Accelerator a call or send an email. You'll be connected with an account manager. So you'll have a specific person to assist whatever building needs are there. And it's completely free. There is no cost to this program. Their help is always available. And I strongly encourage, even if you're a tenant, you're not the building owner, anything like that, trying to figure out how you can get your building management to engage in the program. It's always good to reach out. Slide 3. So, okay, so moving on to the Climate Mobilization Act, kind of getting into the legislation side of things. So New York City passed a number of laws geared towards ensuring that we achieve our goal of carbon neutrality by 2050. So to that end, a number of laws that we're going to cover today were passed under the Climate Mobilization Act, also known as CMA, and it was passed in, for our purposes specifically today, we're going to be talking about Local Law 97, which was passed in 2019. Next slide, please. So shifting gears more towards compliance. So starting with Local Law 97, in order to achieve compliance, buildings will be required to show that their emissions are below the limits for the respective year. That being said, ensuring your building's gross floor area is accurate is very critical, since the emission limits and fines are based on that gross floor area. So starting May 1st, 2025, buildings subject to the law will be required to file a Local Law 97 report certified by a registered design professional on an annual basis. There are exceptions for affordable housing buildings, and if you have any questions about whether or not your building is subject to fines or can go down what's known as, I believe it's Article 321, the Prescriptive Energy Conservation Measure Compliance Pathway. That was a mouthful, apologies. Feel free to reach out to Accelerator, reach out to myself. We'll provide all of our contact information, but there are resources to help figure out compliance and all of the confusion that comes with it. Next slide, please. So that being said, let me keep going. Local Law 97 is a law that sets carbon emission limits for buildings 25,000 square feet and above. So buildings that exceed certain emission limits will face annual fines beginning in 2025. If you look at the graphic on the right, you'll see that the bar graphs indicate the emissions levels ramp down over time. This is by design, as the building emissions limits set under Local Law 97 are designed to become more stringent over time in order to significantly reduce our emissions from 2005 levels. So the first limits applied in 2024 through 2029, and more stringent limits applied through 2030 to 34. Lower limits will then be enacted from 2035 and beyond to ensure that we achieve an 80% reduction by 2050. It's really important to note that affordable housing buildings have varying requirements. So again, please reach out to us on what qualifies a building as affordable housing and what that would entail in terms of compliance. It is slightly more manageable, I would say that. Slide 6, please. So some quick commentary and to highlight like each of these items real quick. On October 6th, 2022, the Department of Buildings announced some rules that are really just kind of specifying how the city is planning to implement Local Law 97 and how to comply. So this included a formula for determining a building's annual greenhouse gas emissions limits, the method for calculating a building's energy use, the method of factoring time of use into calculations, which encourages responsible energy consumption, as well as the adoption of EPA Energy Star portfolio manager property types for implementation of the law. So this enables the department to more accurately assign emission limits to the owners of different building types based on their energy usage. I will mention, it says here at the bottom of the slide, there is a public comment period, which I strongly encourage everyone to try and go to. It doesn't say it here, but it's at 11 a.m. It's virtual. Also, the Department of Buildings is accepting comments up until November 14th. So you can send letters by mail, email, everything like that, and they will review it. But after November 14th, I am not sure if they're going to be accepting comments anymore. Just another example here, aligning property types and emissions limits. Some buildings will see an increase, some will see a decrease in these different changes, just based on past estimates. So it is important, just reach out. We're going to help you figure out what is going on in this sort of legislative and real estate / retrofitting world here. And yeah, I mean, the other, I'm just going to move through this to keep time short. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is the contact information for New York City Accelerator. This little QR code is for specific buildings to just connect with the account managers there. And if you will have our contact information at the end as well, we can make a direct referral to an account manager at New York City Accelerator, or you can reach out on your own, whatever anyone's comfortable with. But that was all that we had on the New York City Accelerator side of things. And Joseph and I are going to move into talking about our program and kind of giving more background on who we are and where we're situated. So if you want to go to the next slide.
Very cool. Nicely put, Rebecca. I'm just going to take one moment just to ensure that everyone on this call who may have a connection to your building site super or your property owner, and you are currently living within a multifamily building with 5 or more residential units, just to take down this accelerator information, whether perhaps you own property or whether perhaps you work in the energy efficiency realm as a contractor or consultant. There is a lot of work that needs to be done in order for us as a community at large to reach compliance with city climate and energy goals so that we can all live in a current, more sustainable environment. So we just talked about the stick, which in short is buildings greater than 25,000 square feet will be faced with financial penalties if you do not meet compliance with greenhouse gas emissions. So that's the stick. Now we will go more into the carrot. We have incentive opportunities for multifamily buildings to pursue energy efficient upgrades, which will in turn reduce energy costs, improve property value, and increase tenant comfort. This comes in 2 forms that we'll be talking through today, which is the Con Edison Multifamily Energy Efficiency Program. This is for market rate buildings, and the New York State Affordable Multifamily Energy Efficiency Program, which is for regulated affordable housing buildings, otherwise known as low to moderate income. You may hear me state the acronym LMI.
I also just want to note that within the affordable program, which the acronym for all these are MFEEP and AMEEP, within AMEEP, we also do National Grid. I'm just putting that out there.
Exactly. But I believe this is in the Manhattan. But good to know for everyone. Quick agenda. I'm just going to breeze through this. I know that we've had a long evening. I appreciate you giving us the time to speak through our program. And I do hope that you find this beneficial, and we are available to answer any detailed questions through email or phone call afterwards. I kind of want to breeze through this. But in terms of the program overview, as stated, This program offers incentives for energy-saving equipment and technology upgrades within multifamily buildings. And again, that is defined as something with 5 or more residential units within New York City and Westchester County. These incentives are applied through our company, Wilden Energy Solutions. We are the implementation contractor for these programs. So we don't actually do any of the upgrades. We manage and oversee a large network of participating contractors, your general mom and pop style, electricians, plumbers, etc., who are out there in the field doing the work. And the kicker for participating as a customer is you must have an active Con Edison electric or gas service account to be eligible for these incentives. And to be clear, it is for mainly common area upgrades. However, there are some in-unit opportunities for tenants that I will go through in a little bit.
Really quickly, just because I have my camera on and I get to talk with my hands, to help people understand where we are in the grand scheme of things. Up top is both NYSERDA, which is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, and what's known as the Joint Utilities Commission. So that is the state agency and all of the utilities within New York State working together to agree upon these incentive rates and energy savings calculations. Below that, so I would say it's NYSERDA, then the utilities, and then the utility hires companies like us to help implement these programs. And so we have a network of contractors that we can refer people to, and we work with the accelerator. The accelerator is really helpful for buildings to develop their scope of work, and we kind of assist with the paper pushing on getting these projects out and learning how to apply, how to access those incentives. So, I'm sorry.
No problem. And just to clarify what is meant by affordable housing, the general gist of what this is at least 25% of the units are occupied by households earning no more than 80% of the area median income. So if there's no proxy documentation by a government agency, what have you, we do have a way to verify that income eligibility to prove that income status. Just want to move on into some of the actual upgrades that are included within these program offerings. On the electric side, it would be things such as common area LED lighting, lighting controls, in-unit LED bulbs for the tenants, elevator modernization, and a number of different HVAC upgrades. This might be a little bit over our expertise for the time being, but variable frequency drives, EC motors, chiller replacements, cooling tower replacements, package terminal air conditioning units, and central unit replacement for the AC. So I understand that this might not be relevant for everyone's building. Some of these are found in larger facilities, but for the most part, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit opportunities, such as common area lighting, the in-unit bulbs, and some general ventilation improvements to improve air quality that I think every building should take advantage of in the immediate. And on the gas side, there are opportunities such as high-efficiency boiler replacements, boiler clean and tunes, in-unit faucet and shower head aerators, pipe insulation, energy management systems, steam trap repairs, and then getting more into the nitty-gritty of the engineering part of all this, two-pipe steam retro commissioning, and what is actually very relevant to this specific meeting, building envelope, such as air sealing, roof and wall insulation, and window replacement. There are some opportunities for high efficiency windows that also have some noise canceling capabilities. So definitely want to highlight that as an opportunity. But I don't mean to make light of the situation at hand. Anyways, in terms of how to apply, we'll need to determine your building's eligibility. So by that, we'll take a look at the utility common area electric or gas account, depending on what is relevant for that building. And again, that's where the New York City Accelerator program comes in handy. What we'll need is a general application, a W-9 for whoever will be receiving this incentive. The proposal, you're gonna have to work with one of our participating contractors. Again, we don't do the work, but we take in projects submitted by our contractors. We'll need cut sheets of what is being proposed to be installed. And if applicable, we'll need the proof of affordable housing. And again, these programs are participating contractor led, And one benefit of this open market approach is that we have the ability to onboard, aka enroll, any contractor that you would prefer to work with if they're not already onboarded, to make this process a little bit easier and streamlined. We'll help them get up to date with the program protocol, and building owners and managers can submit these applications. Rebecca and myself will help refer them to a short list of contractors in case they'd like to go with that avenue. And it is important to note that we do have a pre-inspection protocol that must be done prior to the equipment installation in order for that property to retain their incentive eligibility.
Just an example situation of someone who you're looking at this and you're like, what the hell is a W-9, or I don't know what any of this means or something. You can reach out to me. We can get on a phone call. And the utility has asked that we don't send account numbers through email, but if you want to read it to me over the phone or send it in an encrypted source like DocuSign or Box or something like that, I can check account eligibility. And if you have no idea what upgrades your building needs, at that point, you'll know that you're eligible for these incentives, and the New York City Accelerator can help you figure out what is going to get you the biggest bang for your buck, what makes the most sense, what is going to return the most energy savings, and show you, all right, if you do this upgrade and you change your boiler from oil to gas and it's an 82% efficiency, you're going to save 7,000. That's a random number, but you're going to save this much a month on your energy savings. And so having those conversations, really just like, we are here for processing the projects, and New York City Accelerator is really here to provide ultimate handholding, and just walking through all of figuring out equipment eligibility, all of that. So don't let this sort of slide be a little intimidating, because I know that feeling, just from a board perspective, looking at all of the different sort of deliverables, but we are here to take it one step at a time.
As she said, I'll just quickly go through the project timeline, very quickly go through a couple of case studies and on our contact information, and let you get to the third agenda item. I understand it's getting a little late. So as you mentioned, first, we'll just check that project and equipment eligibility. You will submit the application. We'll just do a quick pre-inspection and a little engineering review to ensure that everything checks out in terms of what's being proposed and what we are incentivizing. You will get a commitment letter, which commits that incentive. That will serve as notice to proceed for that contractor to move forward with installation. That contractor will then install. We'll then post-inspect, do a quick QA/QC on what was done, and you will receive the incentive payment once everything is finalized and approved.
I just wanted to note that I have a lot of customers who will come up to me and ask, like, why is this necessary? And it's just to confirm the energy savings, to make sure that you are in fact going to save on your bills every month. Like, we don't want someone going in and installing something and you expecting to save this amount and you end up not seeing those results. So this is really to emphasize that we're taking this seriously. We need to meet our climate goals. Like, this is the process for having that QA/QC involved.
But couple of case studies. This building, 15-unit building, built in 1905. It's affordable housing. What they did was a building envelope and pipe insulation project. So what this does is it reduces the heat loss and improves the thermal comfort. We saw that this project, the total cost was $16,000 roughly. 67% of those project costs were covered through utility incentives due to the fact that the building envelope is based off of the energy savings. Pipe insulation is based off of linear feet. So we saw that 1,700 therms of natural gas was saved, which equated to an $11,000 roughly incentive. Moving to building number 2. This is a smaller building, 10 units, built in 1920. We see a little bit larger of a scope of work, which included common area LED lighting, which obviously is LED lights, EC motor and speed reduction. This is an equipment type that improves airflow control, again, ventilation improvements. So it's not going from 1 to 100 within a flick of a switch. It is based off the frequency, as well as an energy management system to optimize boiler settings based off of time of day, etc. Go for it.
EMS is pretty cool. If you haven't heard of that, I just kind of nerd out about this a little bit, but it's boilers are set up to just operate based on one temperature outside the building and inside the building. What an EMS does is it installs sensors at various points in the building. So you're getting multiple temperatures. So it's saying, oh, it's already this hot in this apartment. We don't need to be blasting the heat at this speed. So it is really, and it's fairly inexpensive, flat rate incentive. You know how much you're going to get based on the units in your building. Just wanted to point that out there.
Exactly. Low-hanging fruit opportunities to take advantage of. I'm not going to go into all these numbers, but main thing to highlight is that you can see that the majority of these project costs are being covered through these incentives. So again, this is the carrot. This is the way to support your compliance with Local Law 97, so that you don't have to double dip with all this liability and payments. Lastly, going into a larger building, I'm not sure if many of these are in your specific area, but this is a 180 unit building. Just want to get some diversity. It was built in 2005, so fairly recent construction. You can see here that there was a larger scope of work, which included common area lighting. You can see here that the project costs, this is what I always like to consider. The project costs here are only 16%. That is likely due to the fact that since this building was recently constructed, there was not that much need for a large scope of work in terms of the lighting. These incentives will be going away as New York City's energy code becomes more stringent. The whole point of an incentive is to do something that you would not do otherwise. So once some of these high efficiency energy improvements are mandated, these incentives will go away. So we urge you to not miss out and dilly-dally on consideration, pull the trigger while there is money on the table. Moving on into the rooftop exhaust fan, we see that a 50% cost coverage was provided through these incentives. And just for some reference, rooftop exhaust fan improvements will help reduce the electric consumption by improving ventilation. And here is something for the tenants to consider, bringing up to your building team: in-unit lighting, so the LED bulbs, as well as the in-unit faucet and shower head aerator devices are completely free. So this is something to note.
I just want to say I got all three measures installed in my personal apartment. I love them. It's great. The faucet aerator, I thought it would be worse water pressure. It's not at all, and it still saves water. It's nice water pressure having the different stream. And then same with the shower head. I can actually clean my shower because it's a handheld thing. Just wanted to say that from a personal perspective. Add some context.
Absolutely. So we are coming to the beginning of the 2023 program year. So there will be a couple of changes in incentive rates. However, right here is our contact information. If you'd like to take down the number, you can press 1 for myself or 2 for Rebecca, and our email addresses are right there. We will keep anyone who is interested in learning more for a business partner or a friend of a friend, what have you. We're here to support. We're here to help you navigate this process. It's confusing, but in general, the overall goal is a more sustainable and currently sustainable environment in which we are dedicated to support. So we very much thank you for the opportunity to present. Let us know if you have any questions, but again, we want to be sensitive of time, so appreciate that.
Would you be good enough to stop sharing your screen? Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. We have no time, but anybody has a question that they want to ask, you should. I see none, and local law 19 remains complex and it will affect all of us. Thank you for your presentation. Let's go to Outrigger.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. Just really appreciate the opportunity to present on behalf of New York Outrigger. I know it's been a long meeting, so I'm going to keep my comments under 5 minutes. I'm Julie Ron. I'm the president of New York Outrigger, which I'll refer to as NYO. First, I'd like to acknowledge that NYO is based in the lands of the Lenni Lenape, and that we are visitors and we carry a responsibility to be stewards of the Hudson River estuary. We're located at Pier 66. It's a boathouse within Hudson River Park, cross streets at 26th Street. And so we serve a lot of neighbors from the CB4 district. We're a 100% volunteer-run nonprofit, and our mission is to increase equitable, low-barrier access to our waterways through Polynesian paddle sports. What I think is really amazing about New York Outrigger is that we are the only women and minority-run water sports organization in the city. So just to give you a sense of what I'm talking about with Polynesian paddle sports, I'm gonna very briefly share my screen. And this is our website. And it just has some images showing you our 45-foot long outrigger canoes. These are ocean-going vessels. You can see us in front of the Statue of Liberty there. And we run the majority of our programming from Pier 66, as I mentioned. So this is an example of our free public sessions where we teach people about the history of Polynesian paddle sports and, you know, our long-standing history in New York City. And right there, that's Pier 66, right at 26th Street. Our secondary location is down by Pier 40 in the West Village, and we offer free stand-up paddle boarding there. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So I wanted to raise some of our long-standing concerns just about limited river access for human-powered boating. And this is especially true for communities of color, for people with disabilities, and for environmental justice communities in the neighboring areas. We are also seeing a limited diversity in the types of human-powered boating that's available in the city. There's also a really high barrier for beginners to continue accessing the river, and there aren't many options for on-water safety training. And so my organization, we try to address some of these access issues through our public programming. And during the summer months, we offer them almost 6 days a week. We're the only group that offers free outrigger canoe and stand-up paddleboard sessions to the public. And for people who want to do more with us and get more in-depth education, we offer low-cost coached programming. And the goal there is to build a community of well-trained paddlers. So we try to serve our priority populations. Those would be communities of color, people with disabilities, and environmental justice communities. We've been operating for 26 years now, since 1996. So well before Hudson River Park was even established, before our current boathouses were built. And you know, we've gone through a lot of changes over the years. Since 2015, we saw a real need to serve the adaptive paddling community. There weren't many adaptive paddling programs in New York City, and so we started a program called Makapo. In Hawaiian, it means dark eyes, and it's a program that serves people who are blind and visually impaired, and we provide everything they need to paddle safely on the water, from education, instruction, all the equipment that they might need. We also offer grants to people who you know, can't pay for the annual membership dues for our low-cost coach programming. And so we don't want anyone to ever feel like they can't participate. And so that's really important to us. Really, one of our biggest goals is to just get the word out about what we do. You know, we're a pretty niche group of folks. You know, when you think about Polynesian paddle sports, stand-up paddleboarding has become more popular, and that's certainly helped raise our visibility. But we want to improve how people access the river. We want people to recognize the river as not just something that they spend a couple minutes looking at, but something they can directly engage with. And to do that, our education programs are growing. So we're very fortunate. We just received a 3-year grant from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. And the goal there is to expand equitable river access through our public paddling programs. So I'm going to take a breath. I know you've now gotten a sense of our robust programming, but we have a lot more to do. We're currently applying to operate one of the 4 public boathouses within Hudson River Park. And so we're really trying to diversify the waterfront leadership in the city. We're trying to diversify who accesses the river. And we're trying to add diversity in the types of watercraft that are available for public access. Not many folks know about outrigger canoes or about canoeing in general or about stand-up paddleboarding. So we want to get the word out and get people to enjoy the river in that way. So the reason I'm here tonight, in addition to just raising visibility about New York Outrigger and our river access programming, I wanted to plant the seed to hopefully obtain a letter of support from Community Board 4, just highlighting how New York Outrigger's outreach mission and our public programming does in fact provide a public benefit for many of the residents in the CB4 district and for visitors of Hudson River Park. Not seeking an endorsement over other applicants for the boathouse operations. We just want to really get the word out about what we do, and that, come summertime, I hope many of you will come out and visit us. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. My email is Julie, Julie, at newyorkoutrigger.org. Thank you for your time.
Any questions? Lowell first, then David.
All right, first I have to preface this by saying that any vote on this matter, I'm present, not eligible because I'm a member of the board of the Hudson River Park Trust. But Julie, thank you for your presentation. I think what NYO does is great, but what I just want to highlight for everyone here so they understand is that there's an RFP that includes Pier 96, which is the current location of the Manhattan Community Boathouse, which has been an organization that we have also supported over the years, including fundraising for when their dock was stolen. And those of you who have been around long enough will remember that.
Lowell, excuse me, does it include Pier 66? Is that one of the piers?
Julie, are you applying at Pier 66 or just 96?
We're at Pier 66.
Right, but are you looking to move to 96? Or are you applying for 96?
So the way the RFP is structured is we can rank our location preferences. Obviously, we'd like to just have a home period, and where we're at is 66 suits us pretty nicely. That said, we will take anything that the park assigns, and the park does seem to reserve that right.
Yeah, no, and so that's what I wanted to just be clear on, because to the extent that we have competing great organizations applying for the same pier, although I can't vote, I would urge this committee and the board not to take a position favoring one organization over another. That's really for the trust to decide. What I think we could do is send a letter of support saying that we're aware of the work that NYO has done and that they have provided a benefit to the community, and stop right there. I think that would be a fair way to handle this, but I would urge not to take a position on supporting any organization, whether it be NYO or Manhattan Community Boathouse or anyone else for, I don't think it's the community board's position to be advocating in the midst of an RFP. Once the trust reviews the RFP, what the trust has always done is come back to us as a community board and said, this is what we've decided, this is what we think is the right way to go. And I don't think we should deviate from that. So at that point, I'm going to shut up. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Lowell. David.
Well, recognizing that, I would acknowledge that New York Outrigger has approached us and the competing organizations have not. I've actually participated in both the stand-up paddling and outrigger programs and can vouch for them. But Julie, this would be a letter to Hudson River Park itself, right? Simply stating that we recognize the public benefit that you provide. We might not say, you're our first choice in deference to what Lowell has just said, but is that what you're requesting of the committee?
Yes, David, and I hear Lowell's point, and I wouldn't seek an endorsement over any other organizations that are applying for this RFP. I think NYO would just appreciate a general letter of support, just recognizing our public benefit. And, you know, David, I think especially since you participated in our programming, if there's anything you'd like to share sort of personally about those experiences, we'd really love that.
Yeah, I brought along a number of friends. It was a couple of great events, and you know, we've always kind of supported activities in the park that have to do with waterfront activities. I think that was part of the creation of the park. Gwen may actually be able to weigh in a little bit more on that. So it seems like you're a perfect fit for, you know, the kind of things that we've supported in the past and that go with the values that we like to associate with the park.
Katie?
Hi, I'm going to start off by saying I'm also present, not eligible on any letter or anything that comes from this, as I'm a board member of Manhattan Community Boathouse. I do just want to point out that Manhattan Community Boathouse has presented to this board on numerous occasions. Most recently, prior to our opening for this season, we had a presentation to the board discussing our COVID safety plans and new things that we put into place. So just clarifying that we have been actively engaged, and prior to my becoming a public member of this board, I've attended WPE meetings on behalf of the Boathouse since pre-pandemic times when we were still in person.
And I want to add to that, the committee in the past has written letters for Manhattan Community Boathouse. In the meantime, there have been administrative letters sent in support of that boathouse. So it's a good thing that we're not talking about competing with each other. Both organizations are doing seriously good things. Access to the river is afforded by both organizations, and they both have wonderful programs that we should be supporting equally, I think, but certainly not one favoring the other. Any other comments? Where are we with the reason the letters have been administrative in recent years for Manhattan Community Boathouse is because we have written letters of support, so it didn't have to come to the committee. If we write a letter of support, we support writing a letter of support tonight, that will be the first time that we have written anything on behalf of New York Outrigger. David.
Marty, an administrative letter would now be one that goes to vote at full board, correct?
We're not talking about an administrative letter here.
Oh, okay.
We can't. The reason the Manhattan Community Boathouse has received administrative letters is because we've written letters that have gone to the full board supporting that operation.
And just so I know, what's different about this case?
We've written the letters. We are at this moment being introduced to New York Outrigger.
David, if I may, Marty, in order to send an administrative letter, it has to be something that the board has voted on previously, that the board office can then just follow up without a vote.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
I didn't do it well. Thank you.
We've never written a letter. The board has never voted on a letter for NYO at this point. So it can't be an administrative letter. It has to be something that goes to a vote. And I have no problem saying that Julie is part of a great organization, as long as we're not seen as taking sides one way or the other.
Right. Is there anything we can do in terms of a communication to Hudson River Park, simply saying as much that we like what New York Outrigger is doing?
Right.
Is that possible?
Sure, it's possible.
What we've done in the past, David, is we would write a letter to the organization, you know, dear Julie, thank you for your presentation. You know, we enjoyed hearing about what NYO does and your, you know, Polynesian paddle sports and the stand-up paddle boarding and providing access to the river, and we think you're doing God's work and keep up the good work. And then, I assume what Julie would do is then put that in her packet with the RFP response saying, look, Community Board 4 recognizes we're doing good work without any endorsement from CB4. And if Manhattan Community Boathouse or any other organization that we worked with wants a similar letter, I would suggest that we write a similar type letter for them. If it's an organization that we think, provides, works for the values that we support. I mean, if Blade came to us and said, we want a letter saying we've been in the park forever, I'd tell them, I'll leave it there. I don't want to say anything that will jinx helicopters.
What you're saying that's different than what I said, and I think you're right and I'm not, is that our letter shouldn't be to HRPT, it should be to the organization itself.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, where are we?
So David, are you making a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to write such a letter to New York Outrigger.
I would second that.
I third it.
I hear no objections. Is there anybody that objects? I'm going to give you the chance to object.
Katie and I have pointed out that we are both present, not eligible on this.
There are 2 P&Es and the rest, I take it, are in favor. I will be very happy to put such a letter together, but Julia, you need to send me, for the blah, blah, you need to send me some information. The basic letter,
I can work with you all on that.
the basic letter has been articulated. It's a letter thanking you, Julie, for your presentation and the wonderful work your organization is doing. I would like to put in a couple of bullets about exactly the wonderful work your organization is doing. And I'd rather have you choose what those bullets are than let me take a look at your slides and pull it out. So how about if I right now give you my email address and you can send it directly to me?
Yes, please.
You see my name on the screen. It's mdecadt, D-E-K-A-D-T, no space, at rcn.com. And I will use the information you give to write the letter that Lowell and David have suggested.
That David suggested.
Okay, that David suggested. Lowell can't because he's P&E. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's switch to old and new business. Those of you that didn't have dinner before this meeting, let's switch to dinner.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you for your help in this meeting, everybody. It was the dog conversation was, I think, a difficult one, but a necessary one. It took a lot of time, and I appreciate your working together to do it. Have a wonderful evening.